politician, a man of his words, a man who was very strict in government. I served under his administration on his 2 terms. I was first an MEC for Culture, Sports and Recreation. We were coordinating World Cup, you remember, in 2010, and Mpumalanga was about to lose that opportunity of coordinating the World Cup because of the infrastructure that was not ready at that particular time in the stadium. He drew me in as the chairperson of the political party together with the then mayor of Mbombela, Lasi Chiwayo, and we reshaped that particular direction of hosting World Cup in Mpumalanga. You will remember that we sourced the grass for the pitch there. Within 7 days, it was showing its head there, and then chairperson of the portfolio committee from the national legislature, he came here, and the cause was redirected, and the then deputy president, Comrade Khalima Motlanthe, gave us a go-ahead to coordinate, and we dealt with number of infrastructure around that particular area. And then after that himself, he redeployed me to community safety, security and liaison, where I served the people of province. And after that, he shifted me to agriculture, for your own information. And I did not know anything about agriculture.
Yeah.
But he kept on telling me that, Shongwe, feed the nation, Shong. And until after about 3 months, then I grasped with the department and I ran with it. I even changed the policy, which was called Masbuyele Masimini into Pesgom Konomlim. He was the man that loves ANC, that one. He made sure that he marketed ANC in the province. He was the first person to purchase bakkies that are branded with the logo of the ANC, and some trucks and a number of
So there are many things that he was
caused.
involved in. How would you, if you were to just use one word, not a line, just a word, to describe your personal relationship with him, what would that word be?
Oh, a man of his words.
So a man of his
Political
word.
friend.
Yeah.
A man of his words. A political friend. A socialist. At a particular time, he used to teach me that Shongwe, umgwaja wasekhaya awudliwa. Meaning, Shongwe, even if you want to engage with a girlfriend, but you must not take a girlfriend that is a domestic girlfriend. That was his on the social platform. He used to call it in Siswati, Shongwe, umgwaja wasekhaya awudliwa. Meaning you can't, pick a rabbit, a domestic rabbit, and then eat it. That was a man that I know.
Okay.
A man of his word, a man
So-
who was punctual.
Yeah, so you've given examples of, some aspects of your relationship with him. You did say man of a political friend as well. But within the ANC, how would you then reflect on his contribution to the ANC and how he's being judged or should be judged by the ANC?
Yeah, he must be judged as a man of his words and a man of action. A man who wanted the ANC to be united at all costs. A man who was preaching unity from branches up to the national level. When he became the deputy president, that was his gospel, preaching to people that we must be united. Whatever differences that we might come across, but the bottom line is the ANC as an organization is bigger than all of us. That is why I want, as the chairperson of SANCO in Mpumalanga, to pay a tribute to him and say, Lala Ngokolo, Mabuza Msheng, you have run your race.
And he certainly has run his race. Now, I heard all the things you said, and the reflection, and it's a difficult time, but when you reflect, and as someone who obviously was a political colleague, a senior, but also a friend too, by its very nature, politicians they and how they judge are ambivalent. That means there are many people who praise him, and there are others who criticize in terms of what he did or may not have done. How do you feel about that?
Oh, well, there were even allegations that were leveled against him. You'll remember during his time, Mpumalanga was called that we have a tendency of political killings and all those things, which were not proven and are still not proving even today. So those were allegations leveled up against him by certain individuals. And he survived, and he said, anyone who have a proof of that can go to the nearest police station and report any person that is involved in that dirty activity. But up to so far, nobody have come out and, scientifically said this is it. He survived all those allegations and some blames and some negative rumors as a human being, but he survived.
Well, I mean, that's the point. I mean, so you mentioned the political killings, and I hear that, and you say, yes, it's not proven. I mean, there were many others. There were, allegations of, potential corruption, allegations of maybe even betraying the NDZ slate, as you know, the way the ANC works with leadership. What can you tell us about that, and perhaps how he may have responded to all those things?
Yeah, no, those things were people's thinking. People were thinking that by virtue of him declaring that he was supporting the NDZ at that particular time, and they said he made a U-turn in the conference, at national conference, and while some of us do not know that, by knowing the politics in terms of strategy and tactics of the organization, it prepares everyone and every member that at a particular time you take a right decision at the right time with the right people at the right place, and that is exactly what he did.
What about,
Yes.
and there's a sense as well from many others that he sort of gently stepped away from the limelight because he was the deputy president, which ordinarily would mean he could make a play for the presidency, right? But he stepped away from the limelight, and either of his own vocation because he didn't want to do any more, or he felt that some of the allegations against him were too heavy, so best he just step out. How do you analyze that?
No, it was not about the allegations. He was the man that did not want to do unnecessary contest. Immediately he picked up that there are certain individual within the organization that were touting for his position. He immediately stepped back, and that had nothing to do with the corruptions and all the rumors and allegations that were leveled up against him.
What about your personal relationship? I mean, you've mentioned a few things in terms of positions where he's shifted you from 1 to 2 to 3, including agriculture. But are there stories that perhaps you can share, just wonderful anecdote memories that you can share with us?
Oh, there are so many. If I can mention all of them, I think I can take the entire of your time.
Maybe one or two that sticks out, yeah?
I've said one of the prominent saying that was coming from him, and he said it in Isiswati. He will tell you, as a personal friend, when you have a squabble with other people and said, Shongwe, you must come down at home, we must come and share 1 or 2 glasses of red wine, and he will say, I've heard, Shongwe, that your movement are to this and that direction, and I wanted to say at your age, please stay away from this and that. That was Mabuza.
Well, I think
That was Mabuza.
it's well summed up. Let's leave it at that, Vusi Shongwe. Thank you for your time. Certainly a sad moment for many people who were close to him within the ANC, within greater South African politics,
you
but
very
certainly
much.
people who were friends with him would look at it on a very, very different level too. So, our condolences certainly to the people who knew him very well and how they connected with him. So thank you for that, Vusi Shongwe, the former MEC for Community Safety and currently now provincial chairperson of SANCO in the Mpumalanga region, which is really where the former deputy president hails from as well. This is the National Pulse.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45, proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Mr. Govender, congrats on the retirement. You just sold your car to We Buy Cars. Tell us about it.
Yes, it just gathered dust in the garage, so I exchanged it for cold hard cash. Now my wife and I can enjoy a stress-free retirement.
Retiring the car as you retire. Nice. So why We Buy Cars?
It was so quick. They came over to our house to do the evaluation, and we sold it the same day. Tops, man.
Okay, so now you got even more time on your hands, eh?
Exactly.
We Buy Cars. Geared for your next chapter. Geared for you.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let me put this to you. We welcome your thoughts, your opinions, firstly, again, in reflection on the passing of David Mabuza, but also perhaps more about his mission. I mean, how do you see the things he's done, particularly in the Mpumalanga region? That's one, but also broadly as a South African, keeping in mind that he rose to the position of deputy president of the country, and that's quite significant. So just your thoughts, and I accept the fact, as we know, although he's passed on, that some will be complimentary, others may not be, because yes, he's been spoken about as this cat, right, with many, many lives. So perhaps you may want to do that. To call in 086 000 2032 to get us there. So we've got a few tributes. Here's one from the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, paying tribute to Didi Mabuza.
As you are all aware, Your Excellency, South Africa is today mourning the passing of our former Deputy President, David Mabuza, who was my Deputy President in the sixth administration, rather. He served as the Deputy President of the Republic from 2018 to 2023, and before that as the Premier of one of our provinces, Mpumalanga. It is appropriate that we pay tribute to him on this occasion, both for his contribution in many, many ways to the development of our democracy and to the quest for peace and stability also on the African continent. He was deeply committed to the cause of the people of South Africa and to building bonds of friendship and cooperation with peoples from other countries around the world. I think it is appropriate, as this is the first formal official occasion that we have, that we should observe a moment of silence and his memory. Could we stand up just for a minute to observe a moment of silence?
So that's from the President, Cyril Ramaphosa. There's more. The Deputy President, that's the incumbent Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, also paid tribute to Didi Mabuza, and he did this outside his home in Johannesburg.
He would always say to me, I want unity. And really that's what I want to remember him about. He always wanted unity. And I want to say to members of the African National Congress in particular that we need to build on that legacy, the legacy of unity, the legacy of putting people first. And that was David Mabuza for us, a man who once he agrees to do something, he will never betray you. He will never change. And that's the kind of leadership that we want to see emerging in our ranks. People who are committed, who are honest, who will live by the values of our organization and never turn their backs on our people. We want to say to the Mabuza family, to his wife, that be strong. We don't have any more words to console you, but we will try, because we are also consoling ourselves. David Mabuza was like family to me, so we are consoling ourselves as well on this day. But we will continue to build on what he started. Many projects in Mpumalanga. I've already said that there's a lot of good work he did when he was deputy president that I'm now dealing with myself. And I think it's important that in whatever we do, in whatever way we are saying we are honoring him, it must be commitment to serve the people, commitment to make South Africa better. That's really what we want to honor him on, that we're going to continue on that commitment of serving the people. And I want to say, may his soul rest in eternal peace. He has done his part in this world.
Okay, there we are from the incumbent deputy president paying tribute to the former deputy president, and a moment in history in that sense alone. Right, let's get to some of your thoughts. And again, you can pick up in terms of the tributes to Didi Mabuza, that's one, but also some of the other issues we've mentioned, particularly if you want to pick up on what Thabo Mbeki may have said to John Steenhuisen in his letter to him, and suggesting totally supportive of the national dialogue, that is Thabo Mbeki, and then suggesting that perhaps the DA, if they're really at that loggerheads with the ANC, then maybe they should walk away from the GNU. How interesting is that? Here's some voice notes.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, the idea of the national dialogue, it was the idea of the former president, Thabo Mbeki. I did go through his letter, and he does not even mention the issues that were raised by the DA. For instance, the inclusion of the accused corrupt ANC ministers in the cabinet of Ramaphosa, the likes of Simelane and Kabane.
Yes,
he's only talking about, in fact, he's talking about the importance of the dialogue. Thanks from Andile in Willowvale, Eastern Cape.
Thanks, Andile. And I think he made an interesting case for the dialogue, saying, the plan was to get all foundations, which I would think would be the Mandela Foundation. He didn't mention names, but, maybe Kathrada Foundation, others, and really get them to mobilize and craft out a new way for South Africa, and away from just the day-to-day political issues. And therefore, he was surprised that the DA would consider walking out of that. And you're quite right. He suggested it first, and then Ramaphosa mentioned it on the same night. This is a while back, so interesting things developing there. Here's a comment on Mabuza.
Hi, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Flores from the beautiful Western Cape. Condolences to the bereaved Mabuza family. But for me personally, David Mabuza was like an enigma. He was like the silent partner of the upper hierarchy of the ANC. Never to be seen. But yeah, for me the turning point was when he was in the Premier League and he scored an own goal, betting for Ramaphosa, no longer for Dlamini Zuma. that's the memories that I have of him. Have a good job. Bye-bye.
Okay, perfect. There we are. A turning point. You're just scoring an own goal. Is that how you see it? Let's get to the news headlines. It's 3:30. Years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Austrian counterpart Alexander van der Bellen have pledged to strengthen trade and investment between the two countries. The city of Cape Town says it's offering a 100,000 rand reward for information leading to arrests in connection to the series of shootings in Mitchell's Plain yesterday. And organizers of the Hollywood Bets Durban July, one of Africa's biggest and most anticipated horse racing events hosted at the Greyville Racecourse, says the event is set to attract approximately 50,000 people. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N14 in Centurion has a crash reported near Jean Avenue. The N3 is where crash is reported at Vosloorus, causing heavy delays. And on the R21 southbound in Tembisa, roadworks with traffic restrictions south of the Olifantsfontein Road junction. In KZN, the N3 eastbound in Pietermaritzburg has a crash before Market Road. And in Cape Town, the N2 outbound flooding at Bunga Avenue. The M5 southbound is where crash is reported before Racecourse Road, and the N2 outbound has flooding near Robert Sobukwe Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Kapele.
Okay. Right, so it's a busy time for rugby, and you are our Minister of Sport, but not so much for the Springboks. There's a domestic rugby issue that needs sorting out, right?
Yeah, definitely. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Vodacom Bulls have sacked rugby director Jake White. This was following a breakdown in relations between the former Springbok coach and senior players. Captain Ruan Nortje and Marcel Coetzee reportedly led a delegation that met with management to express their dissatisfaction with White's leadership, citing his public criticism of players as one of the reasons. Johan Ackerman, who's the former Lions boss, currently involved with the junior Boks, has been linked to the Bulls' job. Meanwhile, Western Province Director of Rugby, John Dobson, says that the team has invested significant energy into preparing for the 2025 Currie Cup campaign. The tournament will kick off with a highly anticipated North-South derby against the Vodacom Bulls at DHL Stadium on the 26th of July. After finishing 6th last season, Dobson admits that there's now a stronger performance focus and making the playoffs is the key objective.
Western Province last won the Currie Cup in 2017. That's a long time. I think there's been good reason. 2018 we should have won it, and then 2020 and 21 was a bit curious. It's been a bit curious since then, but I think we'd like to play a nice style of rugby. We'd like to experiment stuff, but I would say, and I'm not putting pressure on Labib because I'm responsible. I'll be the guy responsible if we don't get there. But I wouldn't like as negative a narrative towards the end of the tournament as we had had last year. Whilst we got the individual development goals, we didn't do great for the brand and what our faithful expect here.
Moving on to football, Cape Town Spurs have warned 3 of their players, Captain Asanele Velebai, Liam Byrne and Luke Bartman, to report back to training or face legal action. Now, the club, which was recently relegated, has reportedly sent formal letters to the trio insisting that they're still under contract. This is despite interest from Kaizer Chiefs and Amazulu. According to Spurs CEO Alexi Efstatio, says that the players have not reported for pre-season training and are now in breach of contract, while the NSL rules suggest that players can leave as free agents after relegation to amateur level. Elsewhere, Zambia captain Barbara Banda insists that their opening game against Morocco in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations won't be a walk in the park. The Copper Queens' last game against the Atlas Lionesses ended in a win for them, and then it helped them qualify for the Olympics. Morocco and Zambia face each other tomorrow at the Olympic Stadium in Rabat, and Banda says that playing Morocco at home will definitely be a difficult task.
Preparations are going on so well, and playing Morocco is not an easy game, and moreover, we are playing them at home. They've got all the support, and they have the 12th player on the pitch, and we know, but we're trying by all means, trying everything possible that The first game is always important in the tournament, so we're looking forward for that game. And our aim is to go through first. We are taking each and every game at a step, so we're looking at that game very seriously, and we are taking it seriously because we know what it takes to win the first game in the tournament. So that's our target, and we are aiming for the win on that day. I think.
Looking forward to all the action that's gonna come to forth tomorrow with the Women's Africa Cup of Nations getting underway. Elsewhere, Liverpool will retire the number 20 jersey to honor Diogo Jota. This was after his tragic death yesterday. Jota contributed 6 goals and 4 assists in 26 matches in the club's 2024-25 Premier League campaign, where the team won the trophy. In motorsport, Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton set the pace in the first practice at the British Grand Prix from McLaren's Lando Norris. Hamilton headed Norris by 0.023 seconds at Silverstone, with the second McLaren of championship leader Oscar Piastri third, ahead of Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. It was the first time that Hamilton had topped a practice session this season, excluding his pole position for the sprint race at the Chinese Grand Prix. Actually, somebody was asking me, what is happening to Lewis Hamilton? Everyone thought he would do well at Ferrari, but it seems like...
But what is it? I mean, is it a case of in motor racing, it's always about the machine.
Of course.
Besides the driver, is the machine not good enough at this point in time?
I wonder, because there's been a lot of talk about him still trying to get used to that Ferrari machine. However, at the end of the day, it is the car. So I guess, I don't know.
So
it's just not
at the moment, the most important question is not likely to win the championship.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. That's the one that everybody wants to know. That's it. Yeah.
All right, I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
Perfect.
This week on Off-Pitch Goals, Kaizer Chiefs greats and Bafana Bafana 2010 FIFA World Cup stars Renelo Solonyane and Siphiwe Chabalala take on the food and beverage industry. The legendary duo own one of Soweto's most vibrant hangout spots and invite us to be the tastemakers of the inner workings of their establishment. Streaming on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturday, 5 July at 8:30 p.m. Off-Pitch Goals, where we showcase how the stars score in business. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Outsurance will do all they can to save you money on your car insurance premium. But what if they just can't? Well, they'll give you cash just for trying. That's right, just ask for 500 Rand cash. But wait, there's more. If you don't save and have been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years, you can ask for 1,500 Rand cash. Savings or cash, you always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
What does you always get something out mean to you, Lorette?
Outsurance made it possible for us to live our dream to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and say, yes, yes, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and information online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right. By the way, did I tell you, and I have not told you, that today, we do have a fireside chat guest, as we do every Friday, but sometimes we don't, and, person's not available for whatever reason, but we do have a guest today, and he's a very young South African who has made an impact, by saying what he wants to say, even to the annoyance of maybe some people within his community. I wonder if you can get it right in terms of who we're talking to. A young South African who has got a mind of his own and is willing to share it on the air. Here's our fireside chat coming up after 5 o'clock. Talking about the mind of his own or their own. What about Russia on the one hand and Afghanistan on the other, specifically the Taliban government in Afghanistan? So the story now is that Russia and I didn't realize this, has become the first country to formally recognize the Taliban government in Afghanistan since they returned to power in 2021. Remember, they were in power before that as well, right? So, and there's more than that. They've also removed the group from its list of outlawed organizations. So things have indeed changed. Let's try and understand the why and what impact would it have, not just in Afghanistan and Russia, but certainly for the entire Middle East region and beyond. Naeem Jina, as always, with me, senior researcher at the Mapum Gubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. That's Mr. of course. Naeem, good to connect with you as always on the National Pulse.
Hi, Ashraf.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Firstly, are you surprised at this?
Well, it kind of came out of the blue, but it's not such a shocking development. I mean, the relations between many states and Afghanistan and the Taliban have been going on, even if they aren't formal relations. So really, it was a matter of time before Russia, China might follow, and other states would open up those kind of relations.
And you probably heard it in the intro when I made the point that Russia has become the first country to formally recognize the Taliban government. I mean, is that true? I was quite surprised at that. Is it a yes, no, maybe?
Yeah. So, look, I mean, there's, what does formal recognition mean? Pakistan has relations with the Taliban government. Iran has relations with the Taliban government. China has relations with the government. So whether this is, something, and Russia and a number of other countries did not close down their embassies in Kabul, even when the Americans left in that chaos and the Taliban swept into Kabul. Many embassies remained open. So I'm not sure about this, the first state to have relations.
Yeah.
I think that it's also part of some of the Western media as part of the kind of campaign to make Russia look bad for whatever reason. That it makes this kind of thing and then brings out all of these other issues and opposition groups to comment about it, etc. The fact is that Russia, South Africa, many countries have relations with states that you don't agree with. We South Africa still officially have diplomatic relations with Israel, who we are saying at the International Court of Justice is committing genocide.
Yeah, so you can be at complete opposite ends, but still have an actual official relationship with them on a country-to-country level. Maybe the second part then is important, which is that Russia now putting themselves in a position that they've now removed the Taliban as a grouping from its list of outlawed organizations. I'm trying to understand that because, again, that vacuum occurred for the Taliban to sweep back into power by courtesy of the Americans, who then, having run the country, managed it through their own proxies, then left and created the vacuum. So they knew the Taliban were going to take over, isn't it?
Yes, they knew the Taliban was going to take over. I mean, these are bureaucratic kind of things. So the Taliban has remained on the list of terrorist organizations. It didn't make much of a difference either to Taliban or Russia that they were on that list. But now it does make a difference when you want to strengthen relations, when you want to build those relations in a way that Afghanistan, which requires all kinds of things that Russia is able to supply, like wheat. The situation in Afghanistan is not great. Wheat, oil, gas, etc. The Taliban would be happy to receive that from Russia. And from the Russian perspective, extending the sphere of influence to a country like Taliban, west of themselves is very useful in a context where they are worried about creeping NATO coming closer and closer. And of course, for Russia, Afghanistan has huge kind of mineral resources that are untapped. So there's lots of benefits for both parties. but you can't really deal with the party that you have on your list as a terrorist organization. So you remove that, and does it really make much of a difference to the Taliban? Probably not, except that they're able to do this. I mean, a country like Iran, that the first time when the Taliban was in power, a consulate of Iran was attacked in Afghanistan, and I think around 20 diplomats were killed or something. But in the period when they were removed from power and the Americans were occupying Afghanistan, Iran gave refuge to those very same Taliban leaders. So these are the kinds of things that happen when it's in the interests, geopolitical interests. And right now, for Russia, both for the economic reasons, because of all of the mineral wealth, etc., in Afghanistan, that's largely untapped. And China has already, around 2021, soon after the Taliban came into power, signed deals about mining in Afghanistan. Russia has come in a bit late, in a sense. So yeah, I mean, it's a mutual benefit. And as I said, all of the reports in the Western media quoting women's organizations, for example, those things, fortunately or unfortunately, more likely unfortunately, don't feature when countries like this make these kinds of deals. Again, we have diplomatic relations with Israel, who we are saying, we've taken them to court for committing the worst crime that a state can commit, which is genocide. But we haven't ended relations. We haven't ended diplomatic relations with them. We still export coal to them. We still import from them, etc.
Okay. What then, in your opinion, is the fact and opinion is the global perception of the Taliban-led Afghanistan now?
Well, the general perception is very problematic. I mean, in the West, certainly, for the United States, the fact that they fought in Afghanistan for 20 years simply in order to return the Taliban to power is a big thing. I think that weighs heavily on them psychologically. The whole issue of women's rights, etc., that is touted by the United States, for example, we know that these are just tools. But apart from states, in terms of more popular opinion, there are, in the West, certainly serious problems with Afghanistan with regards to what we might regard as kind of liberal rights and freedoms, not only on the issue of women's education, etc., but other things as well. So there isn't a very positive perception. In the Muslim world, it's little more kind of wait and see attitude, not as negative. And then, as I say, in Russia, in China, there's the potential for benefit, and that's useful as well.
And you're saying the benefit is the big issue.
And public perception.
The benefit is what drives the relationship. Yeah.
Particularly for states, yes.
Just your thoughts then, finally, in terms of this. The Russian recognition on the one hand, but very importantly then removing them from that list of outlawed organizations, which then, as you've said, would be the forerunner to a whole lot more deal-making between the two countries. How would that impact then some of the volatility within that region and beyond?
Not seriously. I mean, it's not going to have a big impact on that because the relationship is going to be largely transactional. There's no, for example, security deal between Russia and Afghanistan. If Afghanistan gets invaded, Russia is not under any obligation to protect it, for example. So it's largely economic and transactional, and so it's not going to have much of an impact on whatever the geopolitical situation there is in terms of instability, etc. But as I say, for Russia, the big thing is that the ability to extend its sphere of influence westwards is very important for it geopolitically in a situation where it sees NATO creeping closer and closer to it.
Yeah, and that's an issue oft repeated, certainly with regard to NATO and Ukraine. Well, I mean, thanks for your strategic reflection, Naim Gina, speaking to us as a senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection, talking about Afghanistan and Russia, and in this case specifically the Taliban-led Afghanistan and some significant changes in the relationship between those countries. Thanks for that, Naim Gina. You, as the audience, well, it's the National Pulse. As always, what moves you? That story moves you. I'm sure you have an opinion. Let's hear from you in terms of what you see in that region and where will this go further forward in the days ahead. Welcome to the show.
A stage awaits, not for applause, but for possibility. For over 40 years, Standard Bank has championed the arts. And at the National Arts Festival, we don't just watch talent rise, we help grow it. Through our Standard Bank Young Artist Winners, raw voices find power, unseen stories take the spotlight, and what begins as a dream grows into a legacy. Join us in Makanda for the festival. Standard Bank, proud lead sponsor of B20 South Africa, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
My name is Lona Temba Mhlongo. I play as a defender. When I'm at camp with Banyana, I don't have friends, I have teammates. If Banyana scored 3 goals against Ghana, I will sing Phambili ngeo, Phambili ngisemoyeni, Phambili ngeo, Phambili ngeo. I will sing that.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Right, there's been a trial that appears to have no end to it. That's the Senzo Mayiwa murder trial, right? But there's an update on that today because the defense team and members of the Pretoria High Court, including the Judge Rata Mokgatleng, were in Vosloorus to inspect the areas where one of the 5 accused, Muzi Sibia, were allegedly assaulted. So let's get up to date with what's happened today with Pearl Magubane, who's been tracking that story over many years. Pearl, of course, is the SABC News reporter there. Good to connect with you as always, Pearl. Hi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Right, what happened today?
Today was a very big spectacle, right from the beginning, outside the Pretoria High Court, and this heavy police presence making their way to Vosloorus. We got to the municipal building, which is nearby a police station right there, where Muzi Sibia alleges he was assaulted. All the accused were taken out of the vehicles and taken to this place so he could demonstrate. He went as far as going down the floor, explaining how he was repeatedly assaulted. And this alleged assault is said to have taken on 2 different occasions. The first happened on the 30th of May 2020, and the second is alleged to have happened on the 5th of June 2020 on the same spot.
Okay, and what else came up today? I mean, that's significant. What else?
Well, Brigadier Geninda, who's the lead investigator in the matter, disputed these claims, and then we moved on to the nearby police station, and I must say there is a court building that separates the 2 buildings, and he said that he denies that they assaulted him and denied ever going to that municipal building, instead saying that they were outside the police station where discussion was had, and this is where Muzi Sibia then made some admissions to his involvement in the murder. Straight after that, we wrapped up and all the accused were then taken back into the vehicles. Another fast convoy back to the High Court in Pretoria, and instead of us listening or placing on record what transpired, the matter has was postponed to the 21st of July after recess, where they will unpack what everybody saw on location today.
Okay, so 21st July is the next important date. Is there any other further development on that issue that you feel we need to know?
No, I think so far what was, would get to hear exactly what happened or how they view the place, because, what the reason why we had this inspection was because of different views from the Brigadier and Sibia. So we're going to get a clear picture of exactly what we saw today, what everybody saw on the 21st when we come back to court.
Okay, let's leave it at that until the 21st then. Pearl Magubani, SABC News reporter covering the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. This is the National Pulse.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, if you have a comment on the Afghanistan issue, Afghanistan-Russia, feel free to go for it. If you have a comment on David Mabuza, the now deceased former deputy president of South Africa, we certainly want to hear from you on that one there. But there could be other issues too, right? That point about Thabo Mbeki effectively making the point that he, yes, was the one who first suggested this national dialogue in some form or the other, and surprised at the position of the DA in that, and suggested that what are they doing there within the GNU? That's interesting. Right, let's get to your calls. Lenius from Sunco, of course, talking about Didi Mabuza. Go for it, Lenius.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, yesterday it has been a little bit heavy in Mpumalanga and the country at large. And as a civic movement, we really want to send our condolences to the Mabuza family and friends and comrades and South Africans at large. And we really believe that he served the country well. And we really hope that the president will consider to give him a befitting national funeral, and that's what we want to convey to the South Africans.
Okay, I hear that. Is there any other thoughts that you may want to just share in terms of his own legacy?
Look, he has been the leader of the African National Congress in Mpumalanga, and eventually as a deputy president at the national level. And he has actually contributed a lot in building the structures of the ANC in Mpumalanga. And everybody knew that when we go to elections, then we are going to really see a lot of support of the African National Congress in Mpumalanga. And even some other provinces then did have contact with him to share skills of mobilizing for the African National Congress. And we really believe that he has served the ANC and the country very well, because during that time there has been a lot of implementation of some of the Freedom Charter prescripts. And therefore we really benefited from his presence as a leader of the ANC and a leader of the state. Yes.
Okay. Then, yes, thanks for that. And as you said, the challenge to the president to give him a fitting funeral. Let's see what happens on that one there. Thank you for that. Let's get to Mandla now in Cape Town. Mandla, hello.
Yes, Ashraf.
Yes.
Hey, my brother. Thabo Mbeki is out of order.
Why?
He says, what dialogue and nonsense. This guy, Thabo Mbeki, he brought us to the chaos that we have here in South Africa. He brought us ZDP and quiet diplomacy. This guy, Thabo Mbeki is a problem in this country. He doesn't have to say anything.
But wait, are you saying he can't have an opinion now?
No, he can't have an opinion. He's a part and parcel of a problem. Thabo Mbeki, his brother Mweleki Mbeki is better than him. Is much more better than him. This guy is a problem. He cannot lecture DA on national dialogue. He's a part and parcel of a problem, this Thabo Mbeki guy. You know?
All right. Sure. You are clearly very, very angry with him even now. Yeah.
Yeah, this guy, Ramaphosa, you know, when he came with a new dawn. And we all were fooled by him. We thought, okay, now South Africa is becoming a better country. But he's also part and parcel of the problem. He took Zuma out of prison. Zuma didn't have served his 15 months prison sentence because of this guy.
Okay, let's leave it at that. We need to get to news. I hear you clearly not impressed by Thabo Mbeki at all. I wonder, what about the others? Clearly, people within the ANC are going to be very complimentary of David Mabuza. That's the nature of it. But do you have another position that you want to raise? Because, I mean, this is an open platform. Yes, I know the person's passed on, but it is an open platform, and you may want to bring up issues that you see from your perspective, right? Let's get the news. It's 4 o'clock. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, Ramaphosa makes pledge to strengthen trade with Austria, and Durban, July set to attract 50,000 people for SAFM News. I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Austrian counterpart Alexander Van der Bellen have pledged to strengthen trade and investment between the two countries. Ramaphosa is currently hosting Van der Bellen at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. It's the Austrian president's first visit to South Africa. It presents an opportunity to consolidate relations between South Africa and Austria, particularly in fields including arts and culture, higher education, renewable energy and waste management. President Ramaphosa explains the importance of the bilateral relations.
South Africa is Austria's largest economic and trade partner in Africa. Our country accounts for almost a third of Austria's total exports to the African continent. There are more than 70 Austrian companies with subsidiaries or agencies in South Africa across a range of sectors of our economy. There is significant potential to deepen investment and trade links in a number of areas, such as the green economy, energy, manufacturing, infrastructure development, as well as tourism.
The city of Cape Town says it's offering a 100,000 rand reward for information leading to arrests in connection to the series of shootings in Mitchell's Plain yesterday. 5 people were gunned down and 7 others injured in several gang-related shooting incidents at different locations in the area. Mayoral Committee Member for Safety and Security, J.P. Smith, says the violence is a direct threat to community safety and will not be tolerated. Smith says authorities are pulling out all the stops to assist police following the deadly shootings.
Sibia demonstrated how he was allegedly assaulted, kicked and suffocated on the pavement outside
The in-loco inspection in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial in Vosloorus, where one of the 5 accused alleged to have been assaulted by the police, has concluded. Muzi Sibia alleged he was assaulted at the Kuruleni Municipal Building not far from the police station following his arrest in May 2020. Lead investigator Brigadier Bongani Gininda has, however, denied all of this. Organizers of the Hollywood Bats Durban July, one of Africa's biggest and most anticipated horse racing events hosted at the Greyville Racecourse, says the event is set to attract approximately 50,000 people. There are 29 VIP marquees offering entertainment with influencers, celebrities and South Africa's elite showcasing their take on this year's theme, Marvels of Mzansi. The highlight of the day, Race 7, will see South Africa's best middle distance horses competing fiercely for a share of the 5 million rand prize money in the 2,200 meter race. Despite rainy and cold weather today, Stephen Marshall, Race Coast Events and Marketing Executive, says it has not dampened the mood. Last year, the main race was won by Oriental Charm. Marshall has his own predictions.
We probably be about 90% there. Always a lot of the work. We had a little bit of rain this morning, so a lot of preparations were put on hold for that rain to finish. It's meant to be clearing up now, so a lot of the furniture and things like that will be going in. The final decor touches will be made to the marquees, to the VIP marquees. From a racing perspective, organisation, we're all ready. The track would have loved this little bit of rain this morning, but tomorrow's looking really, really sunny, so we're really looking forward to it. We're expecting at this stage ticket sales. We're looking between 40 and 45,000 people, so a little bit up from last year, which is great news.
Meanwhile, the eThekwini Metro Police say they have implemented extensive road closures around the Greyville Racecourse precinct to manage the high volume of traffic expected. Metro Police spokesperson Boyce Zungu says officers will be deployed at all intersections to regulate traffic flow and minimize congestion.
We're going to have enough police men on the ground. All types of police officers that we have ever seen. So we'll be there tomorrow to ensure that the surrounding the precinct is safe. The whole precinct of Greyville is safe. Only 2 roads that will be affected. That's Avondale Road and the LI East. Other than that, all intersections around the precinct will be covered with police officers on the ground. Obviously, at night, we're going to conduct a number of roadblocks to ensure that there is no one who drives under influence of alcohol. In all our region, there will be roadblocks.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa and his Austrian counterpart Alexander van der Bellen have pledged to strengthen trade and investment between the two countries. I am Ondilambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
In your sports this hour, Springboks set for Italy. Copper picks Amatax over glamorous offers, and Wimbledon defends prize pot as players push for bigger share of profits. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in 4 ways, queuing towards the Winnie Mandela Drive off-ramp. The M2 eastbound has a crash between the Denver and Cleveland exits. The N1 northbound in Midrand, slow moving towards New Road, and Main Road in Lone Hill, queuing at Lachlan Road. In KZN, the N3 southbound in Pietermaritzburg is where stationary vehicles reported before Ortman Road. The M2 northbound slow moving towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 eastbound in Pinetown queuing at Marion Hill Plaza. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road. The M7 Jakes Hartwell Drive southbound in Mitchell's Plain has roadworks reported with traffic restrictions at Samora Michelle, and the N7 Jakes Hartwell Drive southbound in Goodwood has roadworks with traffic restrictions between Voortrekker Road and Viking Way. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Africa's most decorated women's national team, the Super Falcons, are searching for maximum points in their Group E opening match, while Eagles of Carthage want to emphasize that North Africa is their territory. This is the Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Witness Nigeria up against Tunisia this Sunday, 6 July at 6 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4 and S3. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So,
You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I did say that we have a young South African who's got big opinions and is not afraid to voice it. And we're going to chat to him in the fireside chat. And I'm talking about Pieter Kriel, if you got that right. That's the Afrikaner youngster who, in fact, has said a lot of things. And particularly, firstly, came to the fore around the issues of AfriForum and their visits to the USA. But there's so much more than that from him, right? Including, does he genuinely have political ambitions as well? And if so, which party? I'll ask him that. I should ask him that when we talk from 5 to 6. Do not miss that. There's a lot that we have to talk about around reflections on David Mabuza. We'll chat to Matthew Sposa as well around 20 to 5. So look out for that. But let's get to where we are now. So we've played some clips from some of the ANC leadership being at the home of David Mabuza or just giving tribute to him. So now we take it a step further. We've got the SABC News reporter in Mpumalanga, that's Motsebi Monarang, who's there, is going to give us some more details about what actually is going on there, keeping in mind that we understand there are people in Johannesburg now moving to Mpumalanga ahead of the funeral itself, right? So Motsebi, I appreciate your time. You're on the National Pulse.
Afternoon to you, Asha, and to your listeners.
Thank you. Right. So, where are you now? What can you tell us?
I'm right on the R38. This is the road connecting Barberton and the Patla. In between them, that's where you have the Deputy President, David Mabuza's homestead. I can confirm to you now that since in the morning up until midday, there were no people absolutely. But at this point in time, as it is about just after 1600 hours, there's a lot of vehicles parked outside. You can see some members of the ANC wearing the ANC regalia, and also some that are wearing your EFF regalia. Some are wearing the Umkhonto Wesizwe regalia as well.
Mm-hmm.
That shows you that Mabuza, he led the province. That is why the people came in numbers to say condolences to the family. But I can confirm to you that since in the morning there was no any activities that were happening here. It was only the security forces that we saw at the gate.
All right. And what about family members? I mean, are there family members present? And if so, what can you tell us about that?
Remember when the sad news came, the family, they were in Johannesburg, and the family from his mother, they were in the northern part of the city of Mbombela, which is Pollard, just close to Riverview. So obviously that as well then left it here without any family member except the police officers that are guarding the house. So basically, at this point in time, we are still waiting for the family that are driving from Johannesburg to this homestead. Also those that will be coming from the Riverview area to converge here at the homestead on the farm.
And you mentioned, three, supporters of three different political parties being present, ANC, EFF, and I think you mentioned MK Party as well. Have you had a chance to be able to talk to the people there? And if so, what have they been saying?
They are so saddened about his passing. No one had anticipated that at this point in time, the former deputy president will be no more. So they're saying that they didn't know even about his illness. But you to remember us that some years back, Mr. Mabuza was allegedly poisoned. So it could be the fact that maybe he was still going through that process of illness. But unfortunately, don't know, at this point in time, we don't know what really happened. But earlier on, when I spoke to Desmond Mwela, who was the former deputy president of the ANC Youth League in the country, Desmond Mwela, indicated that he spoke to him yesterday in the morning. And when he spoke to him, he never reflected any illness. It was everything going well. But around midday, that's when everything changes. That's when he heard that the DP is now in hospital, unfortunately. He's succumbed.
What about the nature of the funeral? I mean, we had Lamius calling in from SASCO making the point that he hopes that it'll be a full state funeral. Do you have any idea at this point in time what's the plan?
When you look at the constitution of the country, obviously they've got the categories that they are giving them as the leaders of the country. But remember that the DP cannot be the same with the president. What happened is that perhaps he will get then the category 2 funeral, which now is that it not be the same with the sitting president. Look, as he is now the former state president, the former deputy country. But obviously, you will have the official state funeral.
Okay. Anything else you feel we need to know?
Look, you have a couple of people that will talk about Mabuza as a leader. Then you also have those that are still disgruntled. You know, yesterday I had a chance to talk to some of those people that he led with them in the ANC. Those that were disgruntled today, they're saying that, you know what, let's just close the chapter. We had whatever that we had, the differences that we had, but now, as Africans, we should at least respect that the old man is no more. Let's have the respect to the family, have condolences to them, and we'll just have a good send off to him. So they just wish that all of those who were maybe trampled by him to forgive Mr. Mabuza because it's no more.
Okay, let's leave it at that. I think you're going to be very, very busy over the next few days. Motsebi Monareng, SABC News reporter in Mpumalanga, covering the story of the passing of David Mabuza, the former deputy president, but certainly as now the families, I would take it from Johannesburg, moves to their traditional home in the Mpumalanga region. Now, staying with that, Natasha Piri, the SABC News reporter, has been very, very busy, understandably so. She's been outside Mabuza's house in Joburg, and she caught up with Ronald Lamola.
Indeed, he was one of those people that understood and loved the ANC, a mobilizer, a community builder. And obviously we had our own challenges, but those challenges with him also strengthened us. It has built resilience in us, but it's part of politics. So he indeed lived a life as a congressman. And as we have said, in the province of Mpumalanga, he has left a legacy. In the University of Mpumalanga, his processes that he participated in, the Mbombela Stadium. There are many other catalytic projects across the province, boarding schools for farm children. But he was also very close with the ANC Youth League and liked to work with young people in the province and understood the plight of many people. And ourselves, we also crossed paths with him when I went to Mpumalanga from the University of Venda. As a leader of the ANC Youth League and also the Young Communist League. So indeed, we have lost a great South African, and we have conveyed our message of condolences to the family.
You also at some point, when he was elected as deputy president, had said that his election would ensure that there's a break from the old guard.
Yeah, indeed, it was a generational transition that we had hoped will move further, because the ANC does need intergenerational mix, generational confluence, which I thought it brought that during that elections in Nazareth. But also he stands to allow for unity to prevail in the structures. It's also what we need today for all of us to move beyond our own personal interests, to look into the future of the ANC, to look into the future of the country, and say, can we really afford to be involved in a very bitter succession battle with 40% that we have now going into 2027? So we need to open the engagement and be ANC-like, just like he did, to allow a discussion that must enable us to emerge stronger in 2027.
Okay, that is Ronald Lamola with a further tributes and conversations around David Mabuza, including speaking to Matthew Sposa, in fact, around 20 to 5. Listen out for that. And don't forget, the fireside chat today is the young Afrikaner boy, political activist, and commentator Peter Kriel, talking to him as part of the feature that we have, the Fireside Chat, right? But coming up next, you heard about this, the South Africa-Austria connection, the business connection, right after this.
My name's Kaylin Swart, goalkeeper for Banyana Banyana. Between the 3 meals of the day, my favorite is breakfast. I always have eggs. Eggs is my superpower. In the house setup, my favorite place is the chill room. I'm always in front of the TV watching something. That's only because I get so little downtime. I just want to relax on the couch and watch TV, whether it's football, cricket, rugby, you name it. We are the African champions. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Morning Brief.
Why does all of this matter now, now that we have this democratic South Africa underpinned by a lot of what the Freedom Charter entailed?
There are a lot of weaknesses in the Freedom Charter itself. I mean, there's nothing that's perfect and excellent, and with the exaggeration of praise that the Freedom Charter has been given, a blind eye has been turned on its fundamental weaknesses. First, the issue of land, and the other thing is that, as Sobukwe said, the Freedom Charter seemed to increase the division of people on a permanent basis. And he said this was apartheid multiplied.
That's Jackie Siroke, who is a PAC National Executive Committee member.
Tulasizwe Simelane on The Morning Brief. Find the podcast at safm.co.za. You are listening to The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has been hosting the Austrian President Alexander Van der Bellen at the Union Buildings today. And Ramaphosa said the 4-day visit would be focused on improving trade relations between the two nations. So what we've done, we picked out some key points in terms of what they both said, in fact, starting with South Africa's president, who made the connection between collaboration with Austria, particularly around the issues of renewable energy solutions.
Your visit today to South Africa marks a new chapter in relations between South Africa and Austria. Through the bilateral consultations, we have maintained cordial relations rooted in mutual respect, rooted in shared values, and a common commitment to the principle of multilateralism. We are also committed to deepening investment and trade between our two countries. And I'm rather glad that we will be having a business forum later today. You have brought with you a number of business people and leaders from Austria, which we truly appreciate. And we hope that they are currently interacting with their South African counterparts. And this behoves extremely well for strengthening the relations between our two countries, not only at a political and diplomatic level, but also at a trade and investment and economic level. South Africa is Austria's largest economic and trade partner in Africa. Our country accounts for almost a third of Austria's total exports to the African continent. There are more than 70 Austrian companies with subsidiaries or agencies in South Africa across a range of sectors of our economy. There is significant potential to deepen investment and trade links in a number of areas, particularly in areas such as the green economy, energy, manufacturing, infrastructure development, as well as tourism. We have a common commitment to transition our respective economies along a low-carbon inclusive, climate resilient growth path. As South Africa strives to achieve energy security through investment in renewable and clean energy, we look forward to expanding our cooperation with Austria. We noted with interest the launch of Austria's first green hydrogen production facility in 2023. We are eager to share our green hydrogen economy strategy so that we can explore avenues for cooperation between the two countries in the clean energy and green hydrogen technology. We are interested to hear more about Austria's comprehensive National Africa Strategy, which we understand is intended to expand the cooperation between countries on the continent together with Austria.
Okay, so from Ramaphosa to the Austrian President, Alexander van der Bellen, who made the point where he emphasized and amplified the long-standing relationship between the two countries.
I'm very grateful for the kind invitation to visit South Africa, in particular since we had to postpone this visit twice because of the pandemic of the time. First here in South Africa, and then after the next time the pandemic was really harsh in Austria. This is the first visit of an Austrian president to this wonderful country. I'm surprised of that personally, and I look forward very much to many fruitful meetings here in the country, as well as to be able to admire the beauty of the country, at least in 4 days, which is much too short for a visit like this. South Africa has come a long way, overcoming the dark times of apartheid, but that was certainly a difficult journey. But I can only applaud your country for your non-violent, inclusive transition to democracy and a true rainbow nation, as it is called. I think a beautiful name, personally, which today is a role model for peace and stability everywhere. Austria and South Africa enjoy long-standing, very cordial relations, especially in business. We are close partners in many ways, but not only in commercial matters, but also in science, in culture. For instance, representatives of medical universities are with us this time, and I often realize that it is short-sighted only to think about commercial matters, important as they are. But for instance, when I was recently in Japan, I realized that in particular Vienna and Salzburg are world centers of music for the Japanese people, and this again opens doors also in business matters. This was very interesting. They helped us, for instance. I mean, Austria is a, how should I put it, a well-advanced capitalist country, but still we are very grateful to Japanese enterprises when they subsidize visits of the Philharmonic Orchestra in Japan. So it goes both ways. And I mentioned that also because yesterday we had meetings with young people, very young people, but also young people. The youngest maybe, I don't know, 10, and the oldest 25, making music.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was extremely interesting. And also in this field, we should cooperate more closely, inviting them to Vienna and so on. We will see how it works out. They have also already been there, in Vienna. The Viennese are, in general, people who like music of every kind, right? Not only Mozart. So you mentioned already, Mr. President, that South Africa is our most important partner in Africa as a whole. We have the biggest, the share of import and export to South Africa is the largest of all African countries. That's a consequence of the high development of your country.
So there we are. That's from the Austrian leader, basically the leaders of both countries sitting side by side, Austria and South Africa, effectively doing business together. Right, let me remind you, we've got the fireside chat coming up after 5. Do not miss that. We'll have 1 hour in conversation with a young South African with big views, big ideas, and willing to say it no matter who may not agree with him. I'm talking about Peter Kriel, the political activist commentator. I think he's about 21 years old anyway. Looking forward to that conversation coming up from 5 to 6. Before that, Matthew Sposa as well. Right now, let's get the news. It's news headlines. Here's Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa has launched a scathing attack on DA leader John Steenhuisen for his decision to withdraw from the National Dialogue. African Congress for Transformation leader Ace Magashule has paid his respects to the late former Deputy President David Mabuza, saying his passing was a shock. And the intelligence services in the Netherlands and Germany have accused Russia of increasingly using chemical weapons in Ukraine. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound is slow moving towards Boysons. The N1 northbound in Pretoria slow moving towards Atterbury Road. The N3 southbound in Bedfordview is slow moving towards Van Buren Road, and slow moving traffic reported through the City West area. In KZN, the M4 southbound queuing leaving the city centre towards Congela. The N3 northbound has a stationary vehicle at Cliffdale, and Victoria Embankment outbound queuing towards the M4 highway. In Cape Town, Hanover Park Avenue is closed through Hanover Park due to flooding. Jan van Riebeeck Drive southbound in Parow queuing towards Francie van Zyl Drive, and Sable Road eastbound in Century City queuing towards the N1 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Khapele.
So here's a big question. When the Springboks are on the pitch, they call it rugby or it's sport. But why is horse racing not seen as a sport by many people? Don't answer that quite now unless you really want to talk about it. Let's talk rugby first.
It is sports, definitely, but looking at rugby, the Springbok season finally gets underway at Loftus Versfeld as Rassie Erasmus's men tackle Italy in Pretoria. There's 12 Rugby World Cup winners in the starting 15, with a further 7 amongst the famous bomb squad, and Erasmus says this crop of players will definitely get the job done.
The bench is pretty old. The bench, I think the average age of the bench is 32. But the team starting, the average age is 29, and I think, Marco is not an old guy. He's got a lack of work rate. Vincent certainly brings some youth and some really good work rate. Not quite where Peter Stefan yet, but but he can catch up, and the test match will give him another chance. Kwagga will bring energy off the bench. Jan Hendricks, a young guy, bring the energy. Krappie Samorne, he's a guy who's just finding his feet now, but he's used to playing at altitude here. So, and then the older guys in the team really have engines. Damien Dalenda is 34, I think, but yeah, he's got an engine on him. Jesse is probably one of the best in shape centres in the world, despite his age. Andre is only 30. And then we've got our 2 small pocket rocket wings that always brings energy. And Damian Willems, who's 28, 29. So, exciting team that starts. It's not a conservative team, contrary to what people are saying. I think the bench is probably the more conservative if you look at that. Hopefully we can get a guy like Villiers also into the mix close to his 100th match.
Moving on to football, newly appointed University of Pretoria coach Kwanele Kopo says that he had to turn down lucrative offers from top-flight teams to sign for the Motsepe Foundation Championship side as a long-term project with the enormous potential drove him. Kopo, who had been heavily linked with the vacant Magezi FC job in the Premier Soccer League's Premier Division, turned down the Limpopo-based side. The former Chippa United head coach was in high demand over the past few days, but he explains why Amatak's job appealed more to him.
Yeah, it was a very difficult decision to make, to be honest, because they made me a very good offer, and they were not the only team that I was talking. There were other teams that approached me. Up to last night, I'm still getting approaches.
Top flight football.
Teams, top flight football, and NFD. But this project is exciting for me. To come into a club that is looking a little bit longer term. To come into a club that is looking for an influence from youth right up to professional football. That's my passion. That's what really excites me. And to come into such who would turn down an opportunity to come into such a setup? To have so many fields, to have this infrastructure, to have the high performance center, the leading one in South Africa. I think it was when they came strongly. I think it was a no-brainer for me. To come here and to really do something different, and not only to not make a decision about status. Sometimes we make decisions about status.
Elsewhere, Athletic Bilbao announced that coveted Spain forward Nico Williams has extended his contract to 2035 with an increased release clause warding off reported interest from La Liga champions Barcelona. The deal, which extends the contract by 8 years and swells the release clause by 50%, is a resounding success. Faced with dizzy offers for the 22-year-old, Williams had attracted attention from European giants, with press reports linking him to Barcelona and Arsenal. In tennis, Wimbledon tournament director Jamie Baker says has defended the tournament's prize pot money, pointing to inflation-busting increases as players demand a bigger slice of Grand Slam profits. The winner of the men's and women's singles titles at the All England Club will each receive around £3 million, which is around 72 million rand, an increase of more than 11% on 2024, while a main draw spot is worth a minimum of £66,000, which is around 1.5 million rand, up by 10%. There have been growing calls from players for a bigger share of revenue from the four majors: the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US. Then still talking about Wimbledon, four-time Grand Slam winner Naomi Osaka has crashed out of the tournament in the third round. This is after going down 3-6, 6-4, and 6-4 to Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Now wait, let me ask you about the July is it still called a handicap? It just shows something so naive. Durban July, right? Yeah. So, interestingly enough, of course it's a sport, but for many people it's a social event.
Yes.
And there's also gambling that takes place, right?
A lot of it.
So it's shifted. This has happened for years.
Yeah,
right?
I think now people see it more as a chance to extravagantly while watching your favorite sport and hoping, your favorite horse rather, and hoping that they win so that you can make some money.
And Durban, which is normally warmer than most other parts of the country in winter. It's always freezing on Durban July weekend. Let's see what it is going to be.
Have you been to the Durban July?
No, I haven't.
So how do you know that it's freezing?
You do check temperatures, and you follow TV, and you see people shivering when they're wearing nothing on. Flimsy chiffon shirts, and they're like shivering away. So I'm well informed.
Well, more on other sports in the next hour.
African champions Banyana chase victory in their WAFCON Group C opening match. But the Black Queens want to triple their efforts to stop Desiree Ellis and her girls. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Experience the huge contest between South Africa and Ghana this Monday, 7 July at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Also available on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Hi, my name is Kutlwana Masote, your host of Weekend Sundowner Classics every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between the hours of 4 and 7 p.m. exclusively on SAFM. Now, this is where you get your best classical music jams on any radio platform. Join me every Saturday and Sunday afternoon between 4 and 7 p.m. Weekend Sundowner Classics.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
As always, we have the team from Makwe Fund Managers. Today it's Paswane Mpatlele, the Senior Accounts Manager there. Paswane, let's talk local and global. What can you tell us?
Afternoon, Ashraf, and to all your listeners. Well, it's Friday. It's a quiet day to end the week. With the U.S. out on holiday, market participants in general focus on the end of the week. Good news when you look at the likes of the U.S. economy that is still resilient when you're looking at the recent labor data that is better than expected. But gains are generally kept for open markets due to the trade deals that haven't been completed. And the deadline is next week on 9th of July. We think of big economies against the U.S. like Japan and the Europe, and that is being a focus for investors. Dollar did a bit of a rebound, and that's why we're seeing rand weakness taking place at 1760 against the dollar, against the euro 2073, and against the pound 2403. But when we look at open markets like the Europe, we're seeing they're generally trading lower as they wait for that deadline to take place, down 0.5 across the board. JSE has pressured, being weakness, but has ended. It looks like it's going to end the week up 0.2 currently, and a weekly basis on a positive note, thanks to the resource sector continuing to reinflate, reflecting that G20 economics are rising. We're seeing our financials putting us pressure down 0.8. Industrials are generally flat, and when we bring it to the commodities like oil, they are lower at $67.90 a barrel, and gold is holding up at $3,332 an ounce, being bullish.
Okay, got that perfect. Thanks you. As you said, slow day. It's the weekend. Paswane Mpatlele, thank you for that, and we will connect again with you and the team on Monday. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, more to come. Don't forget the fireside chat. So every Friday we have a person effectively in studio, and we spend an hour talking to each other on issues, journey, their take on current issues, some quirky things perhaps, what interests them, things outside of what they normally do. But we certainly get them to share strong views about some of the current affairs issues that affect the country. I'll put all of that to the young 21-year-old Peter Creel, the political activist and political commentator. Strong views he has on many, many things. Well, certainly, I'll probably ask him about the GNU too, isn't it? But next up, let's reflect once again another perspective as we reflect on the life of David Mabuza, now the late David Mabuza. With me is Matthew Sposa, Dr. Matthew Sposa, in fact, the former ANC Treasurer General and former Premier of the Mpumalanga province. So Dr. Matthew Sposa, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very good. Looking forward to having you in the fireside chat one of the days, right?
You're welcome, sir.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. It's interesting between yourself and David Mabuza. Both of you, your paths crisscross, not just because you're part of the ANC, but you also come from the same region in the Mpumalanga province.
Yeah, first let's continue to pay homage to him, to send condolence to his wife and family, and to lower our head and say, may his soul rest in peace. Comrade Didi Mabuza was a very young, small boy. When I recruited him in the ANC, he was at a college called Mgwenya College. At the time, I was deployed by the ANC inside the country as one of many activists to build cells in schools, in the community, in technical colleges. So he was at the Mgwenya Technical College as a young boy. So we recruited him into a cell, which was chaired by a guy called Sipho Sogati, whose function was to politicize the students, politicize the future teachers, so that when they go to schools, they are very politicized, they understand ANC politics. Fast forward, I was thrown to exile, came back after many years, and then, of course, deployed in the province of Mpumalanga as premier, the first premier by the ANC and Nelson Mandela. What happened was that we had to put together a cabinet. And there was a tussle about who must be the MEC of Education. It was settled on the basis that I should appoint him. He was a teacher at a simple school called Mshata, and I asked that they bring him to the office of the ANC. He came there. I said, Comrade Didi, you're going to be the first MEC of Education in Mpumalanga province. He said, me? I said, yes, you. He said, I don't know how to be an MEC. I said, well, listen to me, I don't know how to be a premier myself. So we'll learn. We'll learn on the job. Let's just serve the people. If we must build schools, we must do that. We must build roads there. Housing, we must do all those things. Get the teachers to teach. So we're going to be on the field. We did that until I finished my first term. Then I left. There were other premiers, 2 premiers between me and him, Mashlangu and Makweta. Then he became premier. He specialized in building new schools, of course, promoting agriculture and other things like that. Very good work he did there in the province. And then as he maneuvered into political scene at the national level, he ended up being the deputy president of South Africa. I never knew when I recruited this young man, the young Bambino, into an ANC cell that I was grooming the next deputy president. But that's what happened.
How do you think then, I mean, that journey, as you said, from initial recruitment to grooming the deputy president, what happened on that journey? Because ultimately he must have had qualities, and you're in politics, you would understand it. He must have had the qualities to be able to get the support of people at grassroots and lobbying, say, within branches, and then also to show the acumen that it actually can lead to be able to get the nod. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I can tell you, when we first had our election in 94, we got close to 80%. Our slate was very popular in the province. I mean, we're not really contested. The National Party only had 2 members of parliament. The Freedom Front also had only 2. The rest we took over. The ANC was a base of the ANC, a base which didn't happen on its own. We spent many years in the underground cultivating the Eastern Transvaal into an ANC political base. And when the ANC came back in 94, it was ready made for them. So Didi Mabuza and others inherited again an ANC legacy in Mpumalanga. And it is that ANC legacy which catapulted him to a national stage until he became the deputy president.
Lots to consider. Now, what was your relationship like with him?
We had a very good relationship because I was his boss for a very long time. But in politics, we don't always agree. And in the ANC in particular, we believe in open debate, criticism, and self-criticism. Like Einstein said, we differ to agree. We differ to agree. We always agree to differ to agree, me and Didi.
What did you differ on?
Well, there were many things. For example, sometimes I will not be satisfied with matric results, and I'll take it out on him. And I tried my best. I said, I want better. I want your better best. That type of thing,
Interesting.
That type of thing. But at the end of the day, we never became real enemies between me and him. I can give you a story where I lost my firstborn daughter, the pre-exile girl I had. And, he said to me and my wife, I want to come to the memorial service. I want to talk. And we said, okay, come and talk. He takes the stage. Everybody's full and wondering, what is Didi going to say? He says, you know what, people out there think I'm the enemy of Dr. Potter. Dr. Potter is my father. I'm the deputy president today because of him. He shocked everybody. So those are his words.
Interesting. And that's an important point on a very sad occasion, obviously, for yourself too, right? But let's talk about the cat as is being described. I think you called him that too.
The cat.
What does that mean? I mean, I think I know, but tell us more.
Didi was streetwise and full of tricks, political tricks, which worked for him. He knew how to maneuver himself around power all the time. So they said, this is a cat. He maneuvers like a cat. You can't kill him. He keeps falling on his back. You think of falling on his back, he falls on his feet,
I mean, you've also commented with great interest about about that election when Cyril Ramaphosa got the nod to lead the ANC, which means effectively to lead the country, and the change that the cat made at the 11th hour, even after actually chatting to you. Tell me about that.
What happened there was The cat was rooting for Nkosazana Zuma for a very long time. And no one understood what the jam holding the two slices together. But he rooted for her and into the door of the conference. Now, what I can remember is the night before the voting, I met him. He said to me, in Swahili to say Baba, it means dead. I'm in a quandary. I'm being pulled this way and that way. I said, what's going on? The Cyril guys want me to vote for Cyril, but I came here on the slate of Nkosazana. I said, my boy, listen, this is democracy. You exercise your mind and decide what you want to do. What we did with Lindy Sisulu and others, we decided to throw our lot with Cyril. You take your own decision. I left him like that. And indeed, he took his own decision. It was in favor of Cyril. And that landed him into a deputy presidency.
And would we say that shift of his own supporters, David Mabuza's supporters, and then in backing Cyril Ramaphosa, effectively won Cyril Ramaphosa the presidency, meaning it was a pretty close vote. I think it was like 20-odd votes. That means if it didn't happen that way, then we would have had a different president.
Of course. There is no doubt about it. I can tell you now, I don't think many people in the country realize that. And we did analysis. Cyril's numbers were not adding up. Nkosazana was winning. He was winning. And that string of the votes which came with DT changed the score.
Yeah, and changed the destiny of the country as well. Yeah?
It did. Definitely, when we look at the numbers of Cyril, they were not making a lot of sense. It looked like Nkosazana was still leading. And then all overnight, the thing swung. That's why there was bitterness against DT from the Zuma side.
I want to ask you about that, but let's do this. I'll get to that right after this.
Champions need motivation above and beyond winning. South Africa, show your love and support for the WAFCON defending champions Banyana Banyana. Witness the CAPS Hotel Energy's Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024 from 5 to 26 July 2025 on SABC Plus, S3, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Join us for this year's fundraiser, Jazz for Young People concert at the National School of the Arts on the 26th of July. This unique event, perfect for families, is a powerful celebration of youth, creativity and community spirit. So bring the whole family to enjoy a wonderful day of world-class jazz curated by Zoe Mudicha, featuring the Parktown Girls Band, Tshwane School of Music, The Real DJ Zandi, Kutlotaro Jazz Band and many others. Tickets are just 80 Rand and 50 Rand for kids under 12 via Quicket. Jazz for Young People is proudly brought to you by Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, we're chatting, continue to chat to Matthew Sposa in reflection on the life and the death and the passing of someone who's been nicknamed the Cat. We're talking about David Mabuza, who sadly passed away yesterday, and of course lots of developments around his funeral, which we will reflect not just on this show but other shows as and when we know more about that. But right now we're just talking about that moment where he swung his vote at the ANC elective conference away from the person that, for all intents and purposes, he was going to vote for, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and his own supporters, and then pushed it to Cyril Ramaphosa, which effectively changed the destiny of the presidency of South Africa. So you did say, in fact, that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's group were very, angry, disappointed, upset with him, as I would expect?
Yes, I said so. Because I think the numbers we had looked at before we took a decision to throw our lot to Cyril, we're not favoring Cyril, we're favoring Nkosazana.
But in terms of being upset, why do you think he swapped? I know he asked you and you told him who you're backing, but why would, I'm trying to understand the politics of South Africa. So, doesn't he come with a mandate from his branches and divisions to say, like, this is the slate you're going to be a part of?
No.
And is he at liberty to change it on his own?
He did, but he didn't just the change on its own. These guys were lobbying through the night. They called the guys at the stadium, the caucus, and they said, guys, we are going to vote for Cyril now. They didn't just do it on their own. They lobbied their own base, and the base voted the way they wanted them to vote. Now they did a lot of work at night.
Okay. What about, so that effectively part of that deal was, I will support you, and in return, he gets the deputy presidency. So that was never part of the plan originally, but he got elevated or parachuted into that high position, right?
Well, on other slate, that's where he was deputy president. So the swap had to give him that position.
Okay, either way, otherwise he wouldn't support the one. So he
I
couldn't
don't
afford.
think he would have supported that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about his position as the deputy president? Meaning, how well did he do? What were the highs? What were the lows? Where were the flaws and the errors and the great successes?
Well, it's not very clear. For me, at the national level, I saw him as being we kept to his lane, very obedient to the president, never fought for space, but very loyal and did the job which was given to him from time to time. So you can just say that. He did his task from time to time. If he was told to turn left, he turned left. For turn right, he turned right. Fly to Russia, he flew to Russia. That type of thing. So he served like a good servant. He was not controversial, nothing at all, nothing.
With hindsight, I mean, serving like a good servant as the deputy president, would that have been a good thing? Because I would think you would have wanted someone who can also be the all-important sounding board for the incumbent president. And if you're just going to be compliant, you're not going to be that.
I'm sure he was more an insider. I'm sure they shared views. I'm sure he expressed his views internally. It would be wrong that he didn't. I know him. He was in my cabinet. He always expressed his views. And I'm sure even under Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, he did express his views. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. A lot of his career has been marred. There's been lots of finger pointing around allegations of corruption, some maybe unproven, but there's been lots of that, and therefore you sort of stepped away, can I say, gracefully from the political stage. Your thoughts on that?
I don't know what made him step away gracefully. I do know he was not very healthy, in a very good state of health. I don't know what was wrong, but he decided he doesn't want to go on. He just want to be a private citizen and do NGO work. But I don't know what happened there. I can't dig it out.
Okay.
The controversies was always there, but politics is like that. You always have these controversies, but people must prove what they allege. You understand?
What about? But again, then what do you think would be his big successes as a political leader, David Mabuza?
Well, if you look at Mpumalanga as a base, he built many schools and he stimulated agricultural activities. I'm going to give it to him. I think that's his legacy, education.
Education would be his legacy.
Yes.
You
no doubt about it. No
right.
doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to what degree has the controversies and allegations around him diminished that legacy?
Well, it kept hanging on, but it is allegations. You're talking to a lawyer. Allegations are not facts,
Yeah.
Yeah.
How going forward? I mean, he's passed on, right? Would this be a time, a rallying together of the ANC? Because inevitably there will be the funeral, people coming together, and it's a seminal time for the ANC in terms of what the ANC as a party does next. Do you think, in a rather strange way, that his passing may actually galvanize the leadership to say, look, we are losing the older leaders one by one, as one would expect, right? What more needs to happen? How can we galvanize each other as a party?
Well, that will require more than the death of an individual. That's my answer to you. The ANC is running into a difficult situation. That's why we're talking about renewal. There's a lot of problems. We've been victims of corruption. Let's put it on the table. Crime, load shedding, joblessness, a non-growing economy. These are problems. And people lose confidence in the organization. The death of one person will not change that. The ANC has to go back to the drawing board and say, how do we deliver services to the people and re-anchor and reconnect with the masses?
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. I know you need to go. Former Mpumalanga Premier, Dr. Matthew Spoza, thank you for your time and taking the time to pay tribute to former Deputy President David Mabuza, the person that you, as you said, you recruited a long, long time ago when he was a young boy in that region. So much appreciate you giving off your time, right? What I can do is Let's just pick out if we've got a couple of comments that we've got, and WhatsApp, certainly some WhatsApp comments on similar issues. In fact, there's one in Afghanistan. Let's hear that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Women's rights being recognized in Afghanistan? I don't think so. Is this not more like taking advantage of culture and then using that divide and rule principle so that you create terrorists that will rule that country in a way that you want? They're all fighting for oil in that place, and they don't want democratic governments. They want to put their own puppet regimes. That's what it's about. And then they disinform us that they've got a war on terror. Please, Lionel Whitbank.
Okay, Lionel's asking questions. Yeah, not enough time to respond to that, but I hear you.
Ashraf, can I please make you a request, man? Can you please put the name of Papano Pasha on the list of guests, man, that you are interviewing on Fridays from 5 o'clock? You know, I listened to this lady. She's so dynamic and she's so full of energy and she's so knowledgeable. Can you please put her on your program on a Friday afternoon, man? I would like to listen to that lady, the way she's got such a bright mind. Thank you very much.
Okay, I've made a note, Papano Pasha. In fact, I'm going to throw that back to Temba and Keys, my producer, to say, let's let them do some research and then make a call on that. Thank you for that feedback, right? So, okay, we can't take any more calls on this issue now because, as you know, we get into fireside chat mode on a Friday from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And today we have a young South African with strong views on many things, Peter Kriel. Looking forward to that communication or that connection after the news. Let's get the news now. It's 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Ramaphosa slams DA over national dialogue withdrawal and Russia accused of using chemical weapons in Ukraine. Good day to you. President Cyril Ramaphosa has launched a scathing attack on the DA leader John Steenhuisen for his decision to withdraw from the national dialogue. This comes in the wake of former President Thabo Mbeki's open letter to Steenhuisen after announcing the DA's boycott of the dialogue. The national dialogue will see South Africans from all walks of life coming together to discuss the kind of South Africa they want. Ramaphosa says it's ironic for a party that claims to represent the people to simply walk away from them.
Really is poverty of adherence to good principles, to walk away from the people of South Africa, because this is precisely walking away from the people of South Africa and defining yourself outside what the people of South Africa are embracing. Nothing is wrong with the dialogue. It's about people getting together. So what I can say is that the national dialogue will continue without the participation of the Democratic Alliance. And we will probably have a very, very successful dialogue without diversionary inputs or interference from a party that does not have the interests of South Africans at heart.
President Ramaphosa and his Austrian counterpart, Alexander van der Bellen, have pledged to strengthen trade and investment between the two countries. Ramaphosa is currently hosting van der Bellen at the Union Buildings in Pretoria.
South Africa is Austria's largest economic and trade partner in Africa. Our country accounts for almost a third of Austria's total exports to the African continent. There are more than 70 Austrian companies with subsidiaries or agencies in South Africa across a range of sectors of our economy. There is significant potential to deepen investment and trade links in a number of areas, such as the green economy, energy, manufacturing, infrastructure development, as well as tourism.
The leader of the African Congress for Transformation, Ace Magashule, has paid his respects to the late former Deputy President David Mabuza, saying his passing was a shock. Mabuza died yesterday at the age of 64. He served as Deputy President of the country from 2018 to 2023. Magashule was at Mabuza's family home in Johannesburg today to pass on his condolences.
Didi was a human being. We could joke together. Maybe other people don't know this part of Didi. Simple human being, not just a political animal, as people want to wish. So there will be many stories. Others will say this and that. For me, as an African, as a comrade, as a person who worked with many comrades, death is death. All of us, one day we have to die. And it was a shock. We didn't expect Comrade Didi to die at this stage, at this early age.
The Northern Cape High Court has sentenced a former Defence Force soldier, Desmond Zwakala, to 20 years in prison for shooting and killing Kimberley Boys High School learner Amakelang Asachai. Zwakala resigned from the Defence Force this morning after he was found guilty of killing the teenager. The 19-year-old was gunned down after Zwakala accused him of stealing his son's cell phone. The intelligence services in the Netherlands and Germany have accused Russia of increasingly using chemical weapons in Ukraine, a claim Russia denies. The BBC's Anna Holligan has more.
Since 2022, there have been approximately 9,000 documented attacks involving toxic munitions in Ukraine, according to figures cited by Dutch intelligence and based on Ukrainian government data. Chemical weapons are being used to flush Ukrainian troops out of defensive positions, exposing them to conventional attacks. The Dutch defence minister condemned Russia's systematic and large-scale use of chemical weapons as completely unacceptable and a danger to the security of Europe and the wider world.
Top story. President Ramaphosa has launched a scathing attack on the DA leader John Steenhuisen for his decision to withdraw from the national dialogue. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Goos.
In sports this hour, Vodacom Bulls and Jake White part ways and Wimbledon defends prize pot as players push for bigger share of profits. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Pretoria, slow moving towards Garsfontein Road, and the N3 southbound in Bedfordview, slow moving towards Van Buren Road. In KZN, the N2 northbound queuing through Spaghetti Junction towards Westwood Mall, and the N2 southbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, Koeberg Road southbound in Brooklyn has heavy traffic reported towards the Koeberg interchange, and Jan Smuts Drive in Athlone has flooding reported at Klipfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The Algerians get it that a win is a good start to settle in a tournament. While the Southern African outfit, Botswana, is prepared to play their hearts out to open the WAFCON Group B curtain with maximum points. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the hot encounter between Algeria and Botswana, the Sunday 6 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Nelson Mandela once said, "There can be no greater gift than that of giving one's time and energy to helping others without expecting anything in return."
What's your Mandela Day game plan this year? Why not lace up those sneakers and hit the ground running at our annual Mandela Day Walk and Run on July 19th at the DP World Wanderers Stadium, Ilovo. You can walk 5Ks, run 10 and 21Ks, and still have enough energy to have fun. It's a whirlwind of fun and laughter, all for a fantastic cause. Every cent goes to support the excellent work of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Enter on mandeladay.com or register for the virtual race on funnation.org/Nelson Mandela. See you there.
This Mandela Month, SAFM celebrates the spirit of Ubuntu, calling on all South Africans to engage, uplift, and do good for one another. Let's share what we have, lend a helping hand, and honor Madiba's legacy through kindness and action. Join SAFM as we bring you powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and voices that drive change all month long. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So it's the Friday fireside chat, and we get a person chilling with me for 1 hour or thereabouts as we talk about everything from journey to opinions to views to socio-political things, maybe some fun as well. I don't know. All of that goes through. Today it's my guest is Peter Kriel, who's with me. Do I say Peter or Peter? I mean, Peter would be the Afrikaans. So how do you pronounce it?
My friends and family call me Peter.
Okay,
yes.
so with the proper Afrikaans pronoun.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Peter Kriel with me as we connect for the next up to 6 o'clock as well, right? So it's interesting. You're known for a young guy. You are very, very well known, and you're known because you've done what many young people don't do. You've come up front and you've said, "This is what I think." And you've done it. And it's one thing being with a crowd, but you've said things that are unpopular, particularly, I think, when you come from a white Afrikaner background. It makes it very, very different to maybe a young kid from Soweto saying the same thing. So it's not the same thing, right? But you've also commented, I think you came to the fore at the time when AfriForum were doing their lobbying in the USA, and you felt the need to talk, right? So let me start with that, right? Because if you were talking before, we don't know you. At which stage did you decide, look, I have views and I'm going to express it publicly on whichever platforms, and obviously social media will be the low-hanging fruit, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I started around 1.5 years ago, and I just uploaded TikTok videos, always with confidence and intellectual honesty, which is what I think my work is all about. And I didn't care about the negativity. What I wanted was to grow my platform because I thought that change is drastically needed in South Africa. And some videos exploded and some didn't for about a year. And
as is the nature of social media, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And about 3 or 4 months ago, I commentated on the AfriForum fiasco in the United States, and it was like a bomb dropping, and things changed because my videos all of a sudden started getting international attention, started getting attention from Namibia and Botswana and people in the United States. And it also opened up doors to different kinds of threats and racism. Because I'm familiar with South African racism and cultural racism and things like that. But I didn't expect racism to be that bad in the United States. Things like feral Africans, that's not something people from South Africa say or use. That's American hate. And that just taught me to refine my sword. And ever since I've been a little more open to the international community in speaking on issues, absolutely.
So that point, I mean, you're right. I mean, what you did for a year is what anybody can do today anyway. And I've done it. Whether it's on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, and you get hits and misses. Some things are like, you can't believe so many people are excited about it, and others are like just flat and you're shocked, right? So that would be what a normal person does. But it is your comments, particularly around the Afrikaner issue in South Africa and this hot potato Donald Trump and AfriForum, that effectively mainstreamed you, right? At that point when it mainstreamed you, did you realize that you were going to be mainstream? Because you can't predict that, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Absolutely not. I made the videos, and I think only the next day I realized that the tempo at which it reached 100 or 200,000 views was like anything I've not seen anything like it. Usually I've gotten videos that got 100 or 200,000 views, but usually within a week or 2 weeks. This was very drastic. I think the topic was very hot, and I said the right thing at the right time. But also I think that's part of the things I fight against, the biases and the cognition is, I think the international community, especially in the United States and in Europe, took my message as more palatable because I'm white, and to them it looks more Western. And I do think that has contributed drastically to my platform. But my goal still is the South African audience. That is where I want to make my bring about change.
So what is your purpose then?
Well, I think purpose is, I think we all create our own purpose, right? But I want to bring about the means in which we can inspire change. I know I'm a very small dot in a very big universe, and the chances of me doing something so significant like changing a system or bringing down an institution is very the chances are very low. But I can inspire people to do the same, use social media, talk about things, debate about it, have intellectual fights about it, and come to conclusions. And that is what it's about. It's about education. It's about decolonization. It's about the redistribution of not just wealth, but mental wealth.
And when you want to do that, right, and whether you're going to use social media, in fact, you've got mainstream media today, you could be on whichever platform, right? Would your audience be South Africans per se, of all colors and persuasions, or would it be white South Africans, Afrikaners, because that's the community you come from, and that's so much of the issues has been around them, right?
Yeah.
Or is it in fact black South Africans?
Yeah. So I've never spoken to black South Africans. I want to speak to people who align with honesty and truth and historical accuracy. If black people have been historically oppressed, and black people need a person to help from within the white community to help people decolonize and deconstruct, I can do that. I can bring about that fire within my own community. But I do think it's very important that we do it as a network and team, because there's a lot of work to be done in the African community, in the Indian community, in the colored community. But I do think that your environment shapes you, and I was shaped in the Afrikaner community, and I can only speak on behalf of the Afrikaner community and that experience. But I do want to work with people my age from the African community and the Indian community and collaborate. And I want people to do the same that I'm doing.
And is that happening? Are you doing that?
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that are actively working in the activist lobby, trying to bring about change in people's mindsets. And people speak of the youth being awakened. I think that's a facade. I don't think it's real, because 50% of the youth I speak to are still trapped in nostalgic ideas of what it means to be a South African. And half of the Afrikaans people I went to school with and I still have contact with have not changed their cultural outlook on life. And I'm not hinting at blunt racism. I'm hinting at a kind of mental superiority, which I do think is sometimes the assurance of correctness. It's much more than just having wealth. And that's what I'm trying to decolonize and deconstruct, because I do think that opens us up to a more empathetic reasoning. And that's what we need in this country.
Explain decolonization. What does that mean?
Well, I think for the past 400 years, 500 years, perhaps longer, Africa has been a boiling pot for other empires to come here and to export wealth from here for the betterhood of other civilizations, and not on behalf of the African continent. And that needs to change, because solving the world's problems starts by solving the problems in Africa. And I believe that not just as a historical or political or philosophical fact. I do believe that biologically. I believe every single human has in their DNA, it shows that we come from Africa. It shows that Africa is the birthplace of humanity. And therefore, I do really think that by solving Africa's problems, we solve the world's problems. And
so if it's that obvious to you, right, do you think there's global support for that, or there'll be pushback? Because one may say, well, other countries wouldn't want to solve Africa's problems. But you're saying if they don't solve Africa's problems, they're not going to solve their problems. Do they see the link? I mean, other countries, other groupings around the world?
I don't think they necessarily see it, because up until now, the East and the West have always used Africa as a means to get what they want. And even though I'm a blunt critic of both the East and the West when it's necessary, because truth to me at the end of the day is very necessary, I do think that the East has used the Africa to push certain narratives, as well as the West. That needs to change. Africa has very bright minds, people with intellectual capacity to take this continent into the future, unlike we've seen anything before, right? But how do we do that? We go into the townships. You enlighten the world with the minds in the townships, because we have great minds in the township, but they don't get the exposure that people in the suburbs get. Because when you're in survival mode and you have to walk 5 kilometers a day to school. And the chances of you being attacked or hijacked, or especially as a woman or a girl, on your way to school or on your way back, it's drastic. People in that kind of conditions don't have what it takes. And that's why our government, as well as other governments in Africa, needs to collaborate, and they need to open up Pan-African trade zones.
Well, I want to pick your brain on maybe 3-4 issues that you want to get off your chest, whatever they are, and I'll leave it up to you too. It's a blank canvas. But let me ask you this. So where did your awakening start? Where and how?
Yeah, so I've always loved arguing with people. I think debate was really something for me always. But I liked history. I liked reading. Science was, I always liked science, even though I didn't perform when it came to science exams, because to me it was always about the deeper questions and not textbook answers. I started questioning systems of belief and institutions of thought at a very young age. At the age of 13, 14, I explored different kinds of religions. I went to synagogues, I went to churches, to mosques, and I really explored. And I decolonized my mind, and I deconstructed, and I don't hold any supernatural belief per se. That doesn't mean I don't believe in the awe of the universe or in something that created it all, that gives me meaning. I just don't believe in organized religion, because I do think that it's been a hinder to human progress, especially in Africa, when for 400 years we've taught Africans that there's a savior on the way, and people wait for a Jesus to return, when in fact you should be fighting for change and equality and economic emancipation.
Okay.
And no savior will bring that about.
So that was part of your reawakening or awakening,
Absolutely.
right? I understand that. But then how did that turn into, let's call it being an activist from Heidelberg, where for all intents and purposes, if I have to stereotype, they'd be more concerned about whether the Boks are going to beat the Canadians tomorrow, and then suddenly you come out very, very differently. What happened to you?
Yeah, so I think because I grew up in Heidelberg, which is considered a conservative town with conservative norms, I always felt pressured, because to me it feels like these types of environments suppresses the freedom of thought and expression, and I've always wanted to go against that. In high school, I remember there breaking out a protest amongst African kids, because they wanted to be able to wear their hairstyle whatever way they wanted, and the school had a problem with that, even though it was a public school.
Okay, just pause on that, because I want to find out what happened next. I think that could well be a seminal moment for you, and certainly for the school as well. Yeah, chatting to Peter Kriel. Lots to talk about. Young guy, 21 years old, right? Yeah, got a 21-year-old, but he's got his views that are completely worldwide, outside just the town of Heidelberg, and it impacts South Africa and the people of the world here, as the Fireside Chat guest on the National Pulse.
African champions Banyana chase victory in their WAFCON Group C opening match. But the Black Queens want to triple their efforts to stop Desiree Ellis and her girls. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Experience the huge contest between South Africa and Ghana this Monday, 7 July at 5:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and S3. Also available on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, continuing to chat as part of the Friday Fireside Chat with Peter Kriel. There's some comments from people, and by the way, you know that we maybe time for 2-3 calls. So if you want to call in, particularly if you know Peter Kriel, it would be great if you did, but you don't have to. I mean, if you just want to say hi, that's fine. To call in, you know that you can call in live, or you can send out a WhatsApp anytime, just text message or a voice note, right? There are some comments. Ashraf, this guy's intelligent. Let me get that. This guy is intelligent, says one person. And left it at that, by the way. Another one says, good day, Ashraf. Thank you for... okay, we'll get to that one. Another one, just thank you for bringing him on board. And there's a question for the guest. I'll see if I can play that one. It's a voice note. Let me play that right away, in fact. Here it is.
Hi, Ashraf and your team and lovely South Africans. It's Eddie from Ondersras. This is a man who speaks the truth to power. And I just want to ask him whether he hasn't received any threats from those who don't want to hear this truth. And I wish him all the best. And it's like we can have this kind of generation that will build this country, build this country so that all people who live in this country feel free to enjoy the fruits of this country. Wow, I want to say that. And just to ask whether it's relating to all the Creoles who were members of parliament and so on. That's my curiosity. Thank you.
Okay, got that. Related to any of the Creoles in parliament?
No, absolutely not.
Done. Okay. Any threats?
Absolutely, every day.
What type of threats?
Death threats. People telling me they know where I live, and that Heidelberg's a small town. One day is one day, and I've always said that I'm not afraid of confrontation, and I do think a lot of these internet threats, I've realized, are people that have nothing better to do, are people that are very upset with their stagnation because they're not bringing about change, and I think that it says more about them than it does about me.
What about your family? I mean, how have they responded to you not just having a position at home over supper, but you have a public profile and you're going to comment about, for many people, like a holy grail of Afrikaners that are on land and farms and, as I say, the boere. You got all that, and here you are, 21 years old, commenting about that.
Yeah, no, I've not lost family. I've lost one family member who was very upset about the refugee thing. But to me, that signals that the work we have left to do is a lot, especially when it comes to the mentality of Afrikaners. I've said recently that I think it's important that we evolve what it means to be an Afrikaner. I got a lot of backlash for that. What I meant with that is when we lead with empathy, we can change what it means to be a certain type of people, right? We need to be inclusive. We need to be equal. We need to ask for things to be a certain way that advocate for human rights and for women's rights and religious rights and things like that. And I think young people especially are captivated by the internet and by YouTube and by the wrong kind of conversations, not about activism, because they think they'll do it when they enter politics.
and it won't come, yeah.
And that will never come.
Let's talk about activism and go back to, you talked about empathy. Let's talk about the hair issue among some of the black learners in your school. What happened there?
Yeah. So I remember they breaking out a fight because we had prefects. I think we'll just say that they were white and they were enforcing school rules, right? And the African learners, the black kids, they made a protest in school. Nothing huge, nothing violent, but it was necessary because we're talking about young people's right to express themselves, which is very fundamental to human development. And it was being denied. And I grew up in a divorced household, and sometimes I did notice inequality. And I think that played a huge role in how I viewed that, especially at the age of 14 or 15. And I had to intervene, and I felt it necessary.
So you saw inequality in a home, and there's inequality in South Africa, right? So I asked you to maybe pick out 2-3 things that you want to touch on. We don't have a lot of time, so just quick thoughts. How do we deal with inequality?
I think we need to speak about it more openly. We need to be open to seeing the facts. A lot of people acknowledge the fact that there is poverty in this country, but they don't really know what township life is like because they've never been. They've never tried to invest. They've never tried to bring about change or collaborate with local communities and townships because there's been created a narrative that it's very unsafe and you can't go there. And even though it must be true in certain areas, we can only break that narrative if we enforce change ourselves. We set up community assemblies in between communities, and we talk about these things. We demand change from the government. We set up policies and manifestos, and we present them as people's assemblies. It's very effective, and I think we need to do that to bring about equality. But I also think we need to bring that back to decolonization and deconstruction. We need to redistribute. I'm not going to speak about financial wealth. I'm going to speak about mental decolonization. We have to decolonize the mind.
How do you do that?
Well, I think you have to start by reading something, for example, not with the intent of just reading it and knowing the answer already, but by trying to challenge yourself, right? If you are let's use an example, a Christian as I grew up, right? Read the Bible, not to try and empathize with it, but to try and challenge yourself. Not to change your mind, but to develop your mind and to bring about that change in your mind that says, maybe this is wrong, maybe this is right. Because you need to challenge yourself. Only outside of your comfort zone can you grow as a human being.
Well, I'll tell you what, I certainly talk about, a project that I drive called Champion South Africa. We want to build South Africa into a champion nation. The key there is to turn the people into champions, best in class, and then how to extend it. Maybe I'll get to your advice as well. There's some quick comments from people. Ashraf, thanks for inviting Peter Kriel to your show. He must be supported to do public talks on transformation. Please give him my number. I appreciate what he's doing. Comes from Mongezi. Okay, I'll leave it to Keith to connect that. Another one, Ashraf, your guest is the best gift South Africa has presently. There we are. I like his outlook on life in our country and wish all the youth can join him to voice out their concerns and frustrations and chat a way forward. Viva the youth, viva Aluta continua. And then he says Kriel, which I think is interesting in terms of that name. Another one, your guest is misinformed about Africans waiting for a savior. It was the very same Christianity that transformed the West from Thabo Kutaba. In fact, there's more. Let's get to the news headlines. Just go on 5:30.
In the headlines, President Ramaphosa has launched a scathing attack on the DA leader John Steenhuisen for his decision to withdraw from the National Dialogue. Police have launched a manhunt to trace the suspects responsible for the rape and murder of a 102-year-old woman in the Eastern Cape. And a strike by French air traffic controllers has entered its second day, leaving many passengers stranded. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in central Johannesburg, queuing towards Crown Interchange, the N1 southbound in Randburg, queuing towards Bayes-Naudé Drive, and Grayston Drive outbound in Sandton has a crash reported before Catherine Street. In KZN, the M4 slow moving through Mhlanga, the N3 northbound has a stationary vehicle after Cliffdale, and the N3 inbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound has a crash reported before Jan Smuts Drive. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound has a crash before Hospital Bend, and Govan Beki Road in Nyanga has flooding reported at Danafontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Chumi, you've got Jake White on your mind, right?
Yeah, the Vodacom Bulls have sacked rugby director Jake White. Let's try that again. Can you hear me now?
Jake White has been silenced. That's the story.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Much better. Yes, I was saying that Vodacom Bulls have sacked rugby director Jake White. This is following a breakdown in relations between the former Springbok coach and senior players. Captain Ruan Nokia and Marcel Coetzee reportedly led a delegation that met with management to express their dissatisfaction with White's leadership, citing his public criticism of players. Johan Ackerman, who is the former Lions boss, currently involved with the junior box, has been linked to that Bulls job. Meanwhile, Western Province Director of Rugby, John Dobson, says that the team has invested significant energy in preparing for the 2025 Currie Cup campaign.
Western Province last won the Currie Cup in 2017. That's a long time. I think there's been good reason. 2018 we should have won it. And then 2020 and 21 was a bit curious. It's been a bit curious since then. But I think we'd like to play a nice style of rugby. We'd like to experiment stuff. But I would say, and I'm not putting pressure on Labib because I'm responsible. I'll be the guy responsible if we don't get there. But I wouldn't like as negative a narrative towards the end of the tournament as we had had last year. Whilst we got the individual development goals, we didn't do great for the brand and what our faithful expect here.
Well, the Springbok season finally gets underway at Loftus Versfeld as Rassie Erasmus's men tackle Italy in Pretoria. There's 12 Rugby World Cup winners in that starting 15 with a further 7 amongst the famous bomb squad. And Erasmus says this crop of players will definitely get the job done.
The bench is pretty old. The bench, I think the average age of the bench is 32. But the team starting, the average age is 29. And I think Marco is not an old guy. He's got a lack of work rate. Vincent certainly brings some youth and some really good work rate. Not quite where Peter Stefan yet, but But he can catch up, and the test match will give him another chance. Kwagga will bring energy off the bench. Jan Hendricks, a young guy, bring the energy. Krappie Samorne, he's a guy who's just finding his feet now, but he's used to playing at altitude here. So, and then the older guys in the team really have engines. Damien Delenda is 34, I think. But yeah, he's got an engine on him. Jesse is probably one of the best in shape centres in the world, despite his age. Andre is only 30. And then we've got our two small pocket rocket wings that always brings energy. And Damian Willems, who's 28, 29. So, exciting team that starts. It's not a conservative team, contrary to what people are saying. I think the bench is probably the more conservative, if you look at that. Hopefully we can get a guy like Villiers also into the mix close to his 100th match.
In motorsport, Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton set the pace in first practice at the British Grand Prix for McLaren's Lando Norris. Hamilton headed Norris by 0.023 seconds at Silverstone, with the second McLaren of championship leader Oscar Piastri third. This is ahead of Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. It was the first time that Hamilton had topped a practice session this season, excluding his pole position for the sprint race at the Chinese Grand Prix. Then in football, Zambia captain Barbara Banda insists that the opening game against Morocco in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations won't be a walk in the park. The Copper Queens' last game against the Atlas Lionesses ended in a win for them and helped them qualify for the Olympics. Morocco and Zambia face each other tomorrow at the Olympic Stadium. And Banda says that playing Morocco at home will definitely be a difficult task.
Preparations are going on so well, and playing Morocco is not an easy game. And moreover, we are playing them at home. They've got all the support, and they have the 12th player on the pitch, and we know, but we're trying by all means, trying everything possible that the first game is always important in the tournament. So we're looking forward for that game, and our aim is to go through first. We are taking each and every game at a step. So we're looking at that game very seriously, and we are taking it seriously because we know what it takes to win the first game in the tournament. So that's our target, and we are aiming for the win on that day.
Elsewhere, Athletic Bilbao announced that coveted Spain forward Nick Williams has extended his contract to 2035 with an increased release clause, warning of reported interest from La Liga champions Barcelona. Williams had attracted attention from European giants, with press reports linking him to Barcelona and Arsenal. Then finally, in tennis, Wimbledon tournament director Jamie Barker has defended the tournament's prize pot, pointing to inflation-busting increases as players demand a bigger slice of Grand Slam profits. The winners of the men's and women's singles titles at the All England Club will each receive around £3 million, which is around 72 million rand, an increase of more than 11% on 2024. There have been growing calls from players for a bigger share of revenue from their four majors: the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. And in April, leading players from the men's and women's tours reportedly sent a letter to the heads of the Grand Slams asking for a greater share of the revenues. Ashraf, I'm going to be honest, I forgot to
I thought you forgot, because normally you'd brag about it, and I'm like, okay.
I did, but you know what? Just from the top of my head, Springboks versus Italy, I'm definitely going with the Springboks. Tomorrow,
that's an easy one.
The Women's Africa Cup of Nations starting. Looking like my pick of this weekend is actually Morocco and Zambia, and I'm on Zambia's side. So I'm thinking Zambia is going to win this one. Which other one? The British Grand Prix Motorsport. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go with Lando Norris.
Okay. And tennis? You keeping an eye on Wimbledon?
Yeah.
With all those seeds tumbling? Okay, you can't.
Actually.
Who's going to win the July?
No, I can't. Especially when it comes to horses, I'm bad.
You see, the fashion will win. Because that's what you sort of suggested earlier on.
Absolutely.
Okay, have a great weekend.
Yeah,
and we'll check out your predictions.
Yeah, I'll be back again between 7 and 8 on Top Sport.
Perfect.
The Teranga Lionesses know the importance of a win in their WAFCON opener. However, the Congolese also have their undivided attention on 3 points. This is the Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Do not miss out on Senegal versus Democratic Republic of Congo this Sunday, 6 July at 3:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport DTT Channel 4. Then at 4 p.m. on S3 and SABC radio stations. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit CFI.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI, CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, it's the weekend. Jimmy, I'm not too sure how full is your money bag, so to speak, but what can you tell us on the last day of the week? Jimmy, do I have you there? No, not seeming to connect with Jimmy. Let's see if we can sort that out in just a second. In the meantime, I'll just tell you there's some comment. Okay, Jimmy, do I have you? I think we have you there now. Jimmy, right, it's Friday. What can you tell us?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. It's a positive Friday that we're closing out the week in, at least from a rand perspective. The rand back at 17.62 against the dollar, even though there was very slim dollar trading today with Independence Day taking place in the U.S. So U.S. markets will be closed today. They did finish in the positive yesterday, and I suppose the passing of that big, beautiful bill that Donald Trump refers to would be something that markets would definitely need to digest. Having a look at some of the companies that might be affected by that, I expect the likes of Tesla next week might have a bit of a difficult time as the bill looks to undo some of the concessions that they've been receiving as a electric vehicles manufacturer. But we'll keep an eye on that going into next week. With regards to the other markets that have been trading today, though, our own local markets, the all-share was up 0.25%, the top 40 up 0.25%. This was largely led by resources pushing more than 2.6% on the day. Industrials were down 0.2% and financials were down 0.75%. But again, those resources really coming through for our local bourse. If we look at commodity pricing, $3,331 a fine ounce is what 1 ounce of gold will cost you at this point. The platinum pricing, $1,403, a little higher than we were yesterday. Palladium, $1,142. Brent crude, $68.29 a barrel, still below $70 a barrel, but climbing ever so slightly towards that $70 a barrel mark. So that's something to keep an eye on going into next week. The price of a Bitcoin is still $107,000 odd a coin. That's still around the 1.9 million rand mark in rand terms. That hasn't moved too much because of that stronger rand, as I mentioned. And wrapping up things with the rand rand against the pound, 24 rand and 4 cents, back above 24 rand there. 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand 54, and 1 euro, 20 rand and 76 cents. We'll look at the market movements going into next week to see how markets continue to process the big, beautiful bull in the case of the U.S. and what impact it will then have on global markets and perhaps on global sentiment. But the rand being stronger back at 1760 is the standout feature for this week. And the fact that the all shares itching closer to 100,000 points. We're at 97,100 points as of today. Maybe we see 100,000 points going into next week. Perhaps it's in the month of July. But that we'll keep an eye on, and we'll give our listeners an update as we have that. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. Jimmy, you have a great weekend, and we will certainly connect on Monday.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer,
Think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The Congolese have a huge mission to silence the hosts. But the Atlas Lionesses are not shaken. They are confident they will keep the people of Morocco happy. This is the Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2024. Catch the exciting contest between Democratic Republic of Congo and Morocco this Wednesday, 9 July at 8:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus, S3 and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Where Africa competes, South Africa connects. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Weekend View with Bongiwe Zwane. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mwekezi. The Soundtrack of Your Life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Sundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Kherika. Shifting Your Lens with Bertha Charuma. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, I'm back with Peter Creel as we get to the last 15 minutes of the fireside chat. I've had lots of people asking me, Peter, I can't go through all of it, saying, what are his socials? Where can we follow him? So, look, I mean, they can look for you under Peter Creel, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But where? TikTok, we know.
Yeah, TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. It's pretty much every social media
Everywhere.
platform.
Not on Trump's Truth platform. Right?
No, I have principles at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of Donald Trump?
I don't want to commentate too much on that, but I don't respect him as a world leader. I think when people say things for populist notions and narratives, it's dangerous, misleading. It's also, as if it's in South Africa, it's the same case. And he doesn't have leadership characteristics.
Okay. What about the state of South Africa? Just a one-liner on what is said about our country.
I think our country is in a boiling pot and it needs to change. And the only way we do that is by realizing that unity is more dangerous than corruption. We need to unite as people. We need to talk about these things to find common grounds. When people across different demographics realize that they have much more in common. They need to feed their children. Their children need good education. The superficial things become stupid. Skin color and superficial things.
The needs are basically the same.
Yes, the needs are basic. We need to eat. Our children needs to be happy. We need education. We need healthcare because all of these things are expensive. And if we vote for the government, we expect them to provide that. And that's how government works. I commentated yesterday on people saying that we spoke about the refugee things. They said that the problems in South Africa will only be fixed by investment by foreign nations, and that's absolutely false. South Africa's disastrous problems will be fixed only by an efficient and good leading government.
Okay. Are there people in government or even outside politically that you admire?
Yeah, I've enjoyed a lot of historical figures in reading and learning about them. People like Steve Biko, Thomas Sankara. I enjoyed reading Marx, even though I'm not a communist or a Marxist.
Not a Marxist, yeah.
I classify more as a humanist. And people like Christopher Hitchens, I enjoyed many of his books. Big inspirer of mine, and Yeah.
What's the big lesson to learn from that whole refugee USA crisis? Well, not crisis is the wrong word, but anyway.
Yeah. Look at all the measures being taken in the United States now with refugees, checking their social medias, having them unlock their Instagram and stuff. It's a disaster. Don't lie in the first place about there being something like a genocide in South Africa when we have existential crime that affects all demographics, all communities. And I think if we went into it the right way from the beginning, and our leadership went to the United States not to buy foreign investment, but to tell the United States what the truth is, this would have been a whole...
Do you think even when Ramaphosa went, at the back of their mind, it's like, how can we secure AGOA and other things? We mustn't upset the apple cart, as opposed to saying, hey, guy, you're out of order. This is just wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was more about financial gain, about investment, and about keeping bridges unburned, rather than telling the truth, which is it's a much needed characteristic in leadership.
Is there one thing that you absolutely want to get off your chest?
Absolutely.
I wish I had more time, but is there one thing?
Yeah, I think we need education reform. I'm going to leave it with this quote. I think I'm going to leave it with an Albert Einstein quote. We shouldn't judge a fish's ability to climb a tree. And our education system needs to accommodate doctors. It needs to accommodate historians, archaeologists. And it's not doing that. It's ineffective. It's overfunded, yet it's overpriced. And these things need to change. And it can only change by students and activists actively fighting and asking for change.
Here's an interesting one. Now, hello, Ashraf. What does Peter think of kill the boer, kill the farmer? Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that in modern contexts it's important. So when we look at statues and things, I think they do belong in museums for historical context. I think at political events it's very relevant with the right historical context, but I do think with a very tense South African sphere in politics and social life, we need to be careful about what we say and how we chant it, because it can upset people and it can cause problems. But in historical context, in an educational context, I do think that it's necessary that people understand what the historical context is.
And here's another one. Does he consider himself, that you, boer, B-O-E-R, right, or an Afrikaner?
I prefer Afrikaner.
Okay. Or just a champion South African. That comes from Mthunzi. Interesting one.
Yeah. I prefer Afrikaner because I think, and it's probably just a personal choice, but I think boer has a lot of negative connotation to it. And I think we should all be South Africans. We can be culturally Zulu and culturally Afrikaner. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't just be South Africans at sport events. We should be South Africans everywhere.
In everything, yeah. Absolutely. Well, I feel strongly about my country, and therefore I always say I need to build the people into the champions, to build the champion nation. So we in sync on that. What about you in politics? I mean, it's obvious. Every political party, if I were them, I'd be knocking on your door.
Yeah, I've received invites. I've received from 2 major political parties. And to thus far, I've not been able to connect my name to any party because I feel that they are all ideologically drifting to something irrelevant. And we need a youth-driven, Pan-African humanist movement. And how do we do that? We incorporate the youth of Africa, who's over 70% of the population. We need a vote.
I've asked the question to many people. Is there time, and are we able to have a youth party?
Yes. Is there time? See, that's the thing I've always advocated for. We've been taught that our time is to come. You'll make change in 5 or 10 years. Change is not an existential thing out of reach. Change happens now. You have to shout for change now. You have to demand change now. You have to educate yourself on what change means and the consequences of change. And you have to advocate for that change.
So youth party, is that practical?
I think a youth movement. I think South Africa is tired of party politics. If that movement...
How do you effect change?
If a youth-driven...
If you have a democracy, it has to go through parliament.
Yeah, if a youth-driven Pan-African movement becomes formal politics, I would support that. It happened in many countries in Africa. It happened in France, and I think it can happen here. But we don't need we need something that pushes as a movement for at least 5 years that builds relationships on the ground.
Have you followed the leader of Burkina Faso and the things he's been doing recently?
Yeah.
And any thoughts
not
on
in
it?
detail, but I do appreciate his courage to say no to the West and not sympathize to the West. I think we need to do that across all nations, across the West and the East. We need to focus on Africa as South Africans, as people in Angola, in Namibia. We need to build the African continent as Africans.
I know you're off to the Middle East soon. What's your take on that region, particularly Israel, Palestine?
I think what's happening in the Middle East, especially in Palestine, is a disgrace. How humanity has allowed this immense suffering to continue for this long is a crime against humanity, and it should be acknowledged as such. I have nothing against the great people in any country, but speak up against hypocrisy and say no when no is needed. We can't allow this, and that's why I think change is needed, and it needs to be brought about by the youth and people who are aware about what's going on.
Okay, and you're off to that region soon?
Yes, 17th of July.
Can you tell us why you're going? Like fact-finding, what?
Yeah, we'd like to investigate, see what's going on, and show South Africa the truth. Because I think South Africans who've lived through apartheid have a great chance of empathizing with a visual story.
Good point. Right, we've got about 5 minutes to go. So one of the things we always do is we ask someone to give a shout out to a young South African that you think needs to be amplified. In this case, you could well be the young South African yourself anyway, right? But give me another name, not Peter Kriel. Who would you like to amplify? It's like doing something really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me grab some names. Candace King is one of the activists I follow, who has done great work. Let me just grab one more name. He's very active in the decolonizing men, in trying to have men empathize more with women and breaking down this notion that men are superior and all of that. His name is Joshua, and you can follow him on TikTok as Voice of South Africa. He's very provocative, very blunt. He's a person of African descent, and I think that matters very much, especially in the types of videos that he makes. And people should give him a listen.
Is there anybody else?
I think that's it for now.
No, that's it for now. Okay, right. What about now? Forget the younger person. Is there an older person that you'd love to, take out to coffee for whatever reason, because you want to just get close to understand that person?
Well, that's a tight spot. There's quite a few people who I'd like to have discussions with. I would love to have a discussion with both the leader of EFF and MK. Not because I want to join or sympathize, but because I'd like to understand worldviews. But also I'd love to have a debate with Kali Kriel. So I know he's denied my request.
So you have requested?
We have requested, but if he's claimed that he doesn't know who I am, which is not true. But I challenge him to a debate, and if he hears this, please be in touch. Absolutely.
Well, I've spoken to him often enough, and he said yes to me. If you have a chance to speak to the president, right, Ramaphosa, and ask him a question, what question would you ask him? Like just one question.
Why has the African National Congress managed poverty for 30 years?
Why have they not managed?
Why have they managed poverty?
Oh, they've managed poverty as poverty.
Yeah.
Okay.
For 30 years.
All right. And then if you had a chance to not ask him a question, but actually to comment and tell him one thing that you feel like, I need to get this off my chest. So just ignore the poverty part. What else?
Even though he looks great on TikTok memes and trends, and we call him Cupcake on social media, that's not what it takes being a real leader. A real leader doesn't care about scrutiny in the face of truth and honesty and intellectual integrity. That means going to the United States and telling Donald Trump the truth, not fighting for investment or keeping a moderate international community happy. I think it's very important that leaders uphold these values, and I would tell him that. I don't always disagree with everything he does. I do think that he's done good things, but there's always work, and I think as citizens we need to criticize our leaders because that's where growth happens. Not as hate, but as it's a way to for the president to take accountability, because
Okay.
that's his job.
You read a lot. You made the point earlier on. Give me a book you recommend we must read.
Well, I think everyone has probably read Animal Farm. It talks about power dynamics. It breaks into all of that, and I think that's very important for everyone as a political read. But I'd also look into books by Christopher Hitchens, and if you're up for a difficult read but with philosophical and political grounding, go into the works of Marx. Even though we don't agree with him always, his criticism of capitalism is the most effective in history. So take a read. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's a question. What do you do? What's your job title? I mean, you can't say I'm an activist. What's your work?
I'm an activist now.
There we are.
That's become my job. I think when you do social media, it's very important to note that, like we spoke about earlier, there's ups and downs. With every high, there's a low. One video might go viral, another might not. So you have to strategize. You have to create plans on how you're not just going to speak for content, but actually bring about real material change. Whether that be speaking at schools, speaking at youth seminars, speaking with people in groups and assemblies and things like that. That is where I am at now, and I'd like to take that further and establish.
And do you strategize on your own, or you got a team? Like,
well, I'm on my own at this point. I am looking for someone to help me manage my social media as it's become hectic, but we'll put something out for that soon. I have started working with a famous or well-known journalist, Mpho Kaye. We are working on a podcast, which we might also develop into something else later. So be on the lookout for that. We interviewed the Youth League president of the ANC, and that was
well,
very
there you are.
interesting.
Well, listen, I'm going to ask you, we're going to wrap up now. I'm going to ask you to tweet. I mean, you can tweet me, Ashraf Garda, and SAFM Radio with some of the names that you've mentioned and the books and anything else that we haven't got to that you feel you want to get off your chest. So I can share that, okay? It's really important. Okay. But let's end with something I'd ask someone who's 60 or 70 or whatever. What legacy would you like to leave? How would you like to be remembered? You've got 30 seconds.
I would like to be remembered as someone who wasn't quiet when things got tough. I think we need to be unafraid of being pressured and being put on the spot, because poverty is unkind, inequality is unkind, social justice is very much needed, and we need to speak about these things. How do we bring about that fever in young people? You change the means. You show them the important things in life, and you forget about Netflix and all of that, because that's important.
Well, your time is up here, but your activism time is a 24/7 vocation. I'm sure about that. So much appreciate your time, Peter Kriel, and looking forward to see where you go and where South Africa goes on this journey.
Absolutely.
Much
Thank you very
appreciated.
much.
Thank you so much. Right, that's it. That's the show. We'll have a podcast, of course, up ASAP, and we've got some visuals up that we've tweeted too. You can check that out. Let's get the news. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Ramaphosa slams DA over national dialogue. Withdrawal and strike by French air traffic controllers continues. Good evening. President Cyril Ramaphosa has launched a scathing attack on the DA leader John Steenhuisen for his decision to withdraw from the national dialogue. The dialogue will see South Africans from all walks of life coming together to discuss the kind of South Africa they want. Ramaphosa says it's ironic for a party that claims to represent the people to simply walk away from them.
Really is poverty of adherence to good principles, to walk away from the people of South Africa, because this is precisely walking away from the people of South Africa and defining yourself outside what the people of South Africa are embracing. Nothing is wrong with the dialogue. It's about people getting together. So what I can say is that the national dialogue will continue without the participation of the Democratic Alliance. And